In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
Out here in the fields, I fight for my meals.
David Hogg. Boom.
Who's ready to take the fight to the Republicans and win this thing?
To fight.
Are you serious?
Are you guys ready to fight? Let's go and kick some ass.
Ooh, don't do it. Please don't do it.
To be focused.
Look at this fat.
Let's go win our young people back, and let's stop sending just our thoughts and prayers to address gun violence and do something.
Wow.
We can make school shooter drills history.
I doubt it.
Are you ready to do that?
I've become friends with school shooters.
You are fake news.
Fuck around and find out.
Very fake news.
I will eat your ass.
That's a big game, man.
I'll do it.
We're not paid actors. It really happened.
Fed.
All right, America, go to the YouTube right now.
Skag free whoever he is.
Dude, Matt straight up sucks.
How dare you?
In 5, 4, 3.
I can't do it. We'll do it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live for Sunday, February 2nd, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. I am pleased to inform you they have learned absolutely nothing. As you heard there in the intro, David Hogg has been selected as one of 3 Democratic National Committee vice chairs. They all sat around blaming racism and misogyny and then decided on a white guy for their new chairman. So congratulations, Democrats. The whole event was amazing cringe. My friend Justin Nazaroff from Fenix Ammunition will join at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk about that event, plus a few other items of interest. Before that, we're now in a trade war with Canada, Mexico, and China, and Justin Trudeau is still in power for reasons I don't understand. I've never pretended to understand the Canadian political system, but there's Justin Trudeau still hanging out after he supposedly resigned. I get it. It has something to do with when they're going to vote for his replacement and all that, but who's going to bend the knee first? Normally, you can count on Justin Trudeau to gleefully bend the knee, but not in this case. He's hanging on. He's defying Trump and the U.S. on terms that, as a lot of Canadians are acknowledging and understanding, Canada has no reason to oppose. Canada should agree to, but I guess he loves fentanyl and illegal immigration and hates Trump. Later in the show, the Justice Department is getting to work firing people who worked on January 6th nonsense, so that's nice. Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard go through their Senate confirmation hearings. Looks like they're both going to face tough confirmation fights, Tulsi in particular. But we'll check in with that. I have Hoax hate as well. Shockingly, it looks like that supposed workplace noose in Pennsylvania that I've been following for the last few weeks. Looks like that story is falling apart like all the other noose claims, noose sightings of the last, century? When was the last time that a supposed noose sighting turned out to be the real thing? Not this time. Catch up with your Superchats as well. Our friend Knuckle Hunky Buck will join to read Superchat for his usual Sunday appearance. And remember, it's any and all Superchats on Sunday now. Gone is the old policy. Happy to read any and all of your Superchats on any platform of your choosing, and thanks for supporting the show if you do. Speaking of, hey, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the show. You can do that for as little as $1 a month on my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com, or of course, mattis.gay. Listener support is what keeps my operation running, and it is, of course, hugely appreciated. It not only helps me sustain, it's what allows me to pay the people who help me out, too. There are perks available for your support as well. mattchristiansenmedia.com/support, linked in the description. And we got to say hi to our friendly listener-owned business for the evening, and that's our friends at Hero Soap Company. When you try Hero Soap Company, not only are you getting a great-smelling all-natural product And not only can you subscribe and get soap sent straight to your door each month, but you can get signature soaps designed by yours truly as well. Timberline is the classic, an icy pine experience where the forest meets the peaks. Double menthol for that high altitude cooling effect. Or try Old West, highly underrated, people say. The sweet smell of leather and oak barrels will bust open the saloon doors. And don't forget, Hero doesn't just offer bar soap. They have liquid body wash, shampoo, conditioner, cologne, and more. 10% off all of it using promo code MCListener. Let freedom clean with Hero Soap Company. Promo code MCListener for 10% off site-wide. HeroSoapCompany.com. Find everything you need from our friends at Hero Soap Company, plus other great offers from the rest of my friendly listener-owned businesses like Western Razor Company, Kinneo Mountain Woodsmithing, Hope Innovations, and more. MattChristiansenMedia.com/deals. Deals by listeners for listeners. Now, a couple of housekeeping items. Next Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday, which means it is the annual delayed stream, so I don't have to try to compete with the year's biggest entertainment event. So, as usual, I'll be live right after the Super Bowl concludes. That's usually about an hour later than normal, so it should be in the range of 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, thank you for your patience, and please excuse the show's deference to football.
You are gay.
Now, if you've listened to the stream for a little while, you may recall in December 2023, we did a hydroponics kit Superchat giveaway from our friends at Hope Innovations. The idea was the most funny or clever super chats get entered into a pool, and a randomly selected winner got the prize, which was a free hydroponics kit from our friends at Hope Innovations. That's $1,000 value. If you're unfamiliar with hydroponics kits, they are, well, I talk about them on the show, but they are kits that allow you to grow plants in your own home without soil. So you just set this up, you drop a seed in there, it's got a water system, you can grow vegetables, you can grow herbs, you can grow all kinds of good stuff. We did that in December 2023. Well, now for February, guess what? The Tower of Babel hydroponics kit giveaway is back. That means any and all super chats to this stream Sunday and Wednesday are eligible. Any platform is eligible as well. YouTube, Rumble, Tippy Stream, Odyssey, all of it. If your super chat is exceptionally clever or exceptionally funny, I will acknowledge it with this special sounder.
I love you.
If your super chat gets that response,
I love you.
that means you have been entered into the hydroponics kit giveaway. Once you're entered, there's only one small complicating factor, and that is that I don't have a way to contact you if you win, because I don't have a way to contact super chatters. YouTube doesn't let me do that. Rumble doesn't let me do that. So what I have to ask you to do is head on over to my website, and there's a link in the description. If you get a super chat chosen, head on over to my website. There's a giveaway page or giveaway link right on the homepage, or you can find it in the description. Just enter your super chat name and your email address, and that way I can contact you. It's mattchristiansenmedia.com/giveaway. That way I can contact you in the event that you win. It's the only way I have to contact you. So you have to submit that 2-part questionnaire, your super chat username and your email address, and I will contact you in the event of your victory in March. Of course, I will keep your email address in strict confidence. It will not be shared with any third party. It's just for me to get in touch with you. And then it goes into the abyss forever, never to be accessed again. But for all the details, by the way, no purchase necessary. You can submit a comment for free as well using the form on that page of the website. And those will be eligible for selection as well. But we will enjoy a month of super chat selections, and then we'll pick a winner in March. Of course, I thank Hope Innovations for their support for the show and their awesome giveaway opportunity for the audience. All right, let's get into the news. You know, Donald Trump has issued so many important executive orders, and it really can be hard to keep track of all of them. And some of them are really important, and I genuinely think will change American government, American life even. Well, late this week, Trump announced another one that I think went largely unnoticed. I'm convinced this one is going to be a very big deal.
Today, I am signing an executive order making it legal to call your friends fags and retards if they are doing something faggy or retarded. Fags and retards, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to start calling our friends this again. And we will. We're going to call them fags fags and retards again.
That clip courtesy declaration of memes on X. Now, the joke aside, obviously, I think such a thing would be good for this country. We should get reacquainted with the idea that words are just words. They only have the power that you give them. Not only is someone calling you a name not an injury, but it's actually a legitimate part of male interaction and bonding. We as men compete. Part of competing is insulting, trash talking. So let's make Xbox Live great again. And it starts immediately with those two words, too long forgotten. And speaking of forgotten, early this week it was Jim Acosta. We memorialized him on Wednesday. Later this week, we lost another long-established mainstream political journalist. Chuck Todd is now done at NBC, and he's been there for almost 2 decades. Chuck Todd announced his departure from the network on Friday. He said he's going to continue doing a podcast, and everyone said, "You do a podcast?" I guess he does. Maybe he's available. See if I can get him on the show. But as far as the rest of his future, he didn't describe. Well, maybe we do the Matt and Chuck show. Should I give it a go? I hear he's available. Anyway, there were a few emailers who reminded me of this. Well, cue the montage. You got to do the montage. And I thought I already did a Chuck Todd "I Will Remember You" montage when he left Meet the Press in 2023. That wasn't even 2 years ago. I memorialized him then. And I already used the best clips of him then, specifically him begging you to get the vaccine and calling out anyone who had questions about the vaccine as a propagandist bad person. And I thought, well, you know what? Chuck can have the honor. I will give him another montage. So we will remember just Chuck Todd's top political analysis of the last year, the presidential election.
We sit here and hand-wring a lot about Joe Biden's issues, but the fact of the matter is he ended up winning a write-in in New Hampshire. Meanwhile, Trump doesn't have any of these issues, and he's winning by less. Trump has a lot more issues getting his party united than Biden does. Would either candidate look like the caricature that the other campaign has been trying to paint of him? Joe Biden looks like the caricature that conservative media has been painting.
There's too many Democrats on the record saying he needs to get out. The leaders of the Democratic Party making the case to the country, this man cannot serve another 4 years. There's only Hunter Biden and Joe Biden left.
Yes, Joe Biden has unified his party far more strongly than Donald Trump has. This man was political director at a national news network and in varying other roles for 18 years, if only everyone could maintain a job so easily. But in the big news of the weekend, the tariff war, or the tariff wars, are now on because this is multi-front. We got 3 enemies in this fight. Yesterday, Trump announced a new 25% tariff on goods from Mexico and Canada, plus 10% on goods from China. So if you're unfamiliar with what tariffs are, you get imports from another country, so stuff coming from Canada, stuff coming from Mexico, stuff coming from China. There is going to be a tax slapped on those goods when they come to this country. And of course, anytime you have the government installing taxes on any particular sale or in any particular behavior, that's going to have an effect. And everyone is hand-wringing about the possible effects and potential rise of certain rise in costs of certain goods and all that. Now, obviously, this isn't about the taxation itself or the tariffs themselves. Like, this is just a revenue-raising mechanism or something like that. There's a strategic angle here, which we'll get into in a moment. But the lone exception on the Canadian tariffs is Canadian energy. The Canadian tariffs will be 25% across the board, except for energy, which will be a 10% tariff. The tariffs are set to take effect Tuesday. And again, what's the purpose here? It's not just to raise money or something like that. Trump is doing this as an act of leverage to get these countries to treat illegal immigration and drug trafficking more seriously. Now, the White House says the tariffs will remain in effect, quote, until the crisis is alleviated, though what exactly does that mean? They didn't necessarily specify, but they did explain the disputes with each of these countries. So the White House put out an explainer or a statement. As far as China goes, they said that China has not taken action necessary to stem the flow of precursor chemicals to known criminal cartels. So they're not stopping the flow of the ingredients for drugs to known criminal cartels, and they have not shut down money laundering by transnational criminal organizations. The White House says the government of Mexico has afforded safe havens for cartels to engage in manufacturing and transportation of drugs. And all of that is connected to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans through fentanyl overdoses. The White House says the Mexican cartels are now operating labs in Canada as well and trafficking drugs that way. So that's how Canada is involved. Now, in response, Justin Trudeau, who, as I mentioned, is still in power for some reason, they've delayed the election to replace him, or they're stalling on that. He's still hanging out. He's still in charge of the Liberal Party, and he's still prime minister for the moment. And Justin Trudeau announced Canada will retaliate against the United States with tariffs of their own. So here was Justin Trudeau from Ottawa last night.
I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives.
Look at this fat.
So as you heard, some American goods entering Canada are going to be taxed immediately come Tuesday when this goes into effect. Assuming we don't have resolution, maybe tomorrow. Others are going to have this 3-week delay to allow for adjustment for Canadian businesses. Now, the big question is, why does Canada refuse to discuss these issues with the United States? Drug trafficking, illegal immigration. What's the fight here? If our countries agreed on defeating these things, well, then the tariff war isn't necessary at all. We can just shake hands and say, yeah, I don't like that. We should cooperate to reduce drug trafficking and illegal immigration. But Canada is saying, no, we're not going to do anything about that. We're going to fight the United States instead. And so the tariff war is on. And that's the point of Toby Lutke, who is the CEO of Shopify, and that's Canada's largest tech company. But he posted on X last night, I'm disappointed that the Trump administration placed the 25% tariffs. I'm disappointed that our government, I'm disappointed that this is our government's response. I love Canada. I want it to thrive. I built Canada's biggest tech company here because I know it's a special place. Canada thrives when it works with America together. Win by helping America win. Trump believes that Canada has not held its side of the bargain, and he set terms to prove that we still work together, get the borders under control, and crack down on fentanyl dens. These are things that every Canadian wants its government to do, too. These are not crazy demands, even if they come from an unpopular source. Yet we can work together on things everyone agrees about, you know. That is an option. And I get it why Mexico might hesitate at this proposition, because if Trump is telling you, hey, go get those cartels under control, and the cartels are threatening you with the blade that's going to chop your head off, I understand. You might say, please don't make me fight the cartels. I like living. For Canada, it's a different situation. Canada really has no excuse other than we just hate Trump and we're going to damage ourselves in pursuit of our Trump hatred. But down in Mexico, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says Mexico is going to retaliate too. She said on X last night that she has instructed her economic minister to implement their Plan B, which includes tariff and non-tariff measures in defense of Mexico's interests. What exactly does that mean? Didn't really specify. Didn't specify what U.S. goods are going to be the target for her pending tariffs. Sources speaking with Reuters for this report say the tariffed products will be a broad range, but likely to exempt the auto industry, at least initially. A lot of cars are manufactured in Mexico and then brought to the United States for sale. Mexico's feelings are also very hurt because the Mexican president says it was slanderous for the White House to say that the drug cartels in Mexico have an alliance with the Mexican government. Now, you could call it an alliance. You could call it just the cartels dominating the government of Mexico and imposing their will. The fact is, the question, who runs Mexico, the cartels or the government? That is a very open question. The answer is not obviously this president or the government. So if it's not an alliance, as in like a mutual agreement, it's clearly a working relationship. It might just be coercive or corrupt or based on guns pointed at heads. But you can't tell me that the Mexican government has a fully adversarial relationship with the cartels that more or less run that country. Now, China responded. China is denouncing the tariffs, as you'd expect, but China apparently is leaving the door open for talks. China says they're going to challenge Trump's tariffs at the World Trade Organization. Same thing. World whatever.
Ooh, don't do it. Please don't do it.
Now, supposedly the World Trade Organization has jurisdictions over member countries, but what are they going to do to force anybody to do anything? In this reporting, filing a lawsuit with the WTO would be a largely symbolic move. Okay, fine. China says it's not contributing to American fentanyl deaths, actually. China's foreign minister says fentanyl is America's problem. The Chinese side has carried out excessive anti-narcotics cooperation with the United States and received remarkable results.
I doubt it.
Well, the results are remarkable. Got to give them that. You could just ask George Floyd about the remarkable results of the fentanyl, or walk down a street in a major American city. You'll probably see some remarkable results of Chinese efforts with fentanyl. As I mentioned, none of this is actually about taxation. It's not about revenue. It's not about the money. It's about the bet that the United States is in better position to impose its will on these other countries than they are to resist it. It's a bet that these countries are going to cave to do what we want and what Trump wants before the costs become so significant or painful for the American consumer. It's a bet that these countries need us more than we need them. And there is good reason to believe that. The U.S. is by far Mexico's biggest foreign market. Almost 80% of Mexican exports are going to the U.S. That's why you're going to see a Super Bowl ad next weekend begging you, please buy Mexican avocados. And the reason they have all that money to buy that Super Bowl ad to promote their Mexican avocados is because we buy so many of them, of course. Likewise, the U.S. is by far Canada's biggest foreign market. 77% of Canadian exports go to the United States. The U.S. is China's third biggest foreign market behind the European Union and the Southeast Asian nations. It's about 15% of China's exports are coming here. Now, the reverse is also true. Top U.S. export countries are these three: Canada, Mexico, and China, in that order. And those countries together are buying over 40% of the stuff that we're exporting. At least they bought 42% of it in 2023. But if my basic math is correct, 80% of their stuff individually is a lot more than them buying 40% of our stuff combined. So the bet that they need us more than we need them, that is a mathematically sound bet. It's just a question of how much they're willing to harm themselves in order to resist Trump and the will of the U.S. And especially in the case of Canada, why you need to resist the will of the United States, why you need to resist the effort to crack down on drug trafficking and illegal immigration, another question that I guess you're going to have to ask Justin Trudeau about. But let's see. I got time before the bottom of the hour. I wanted to talk a little bit about the latest from the plane crashes. Now, I did not follow the plane crash news as closely as many did this week. The first one with the Army helicopter and the passenger plane colliding in D.C., that happened while I was live on Wednesday. And so I actually learned of that news from a caller live on the stream on Wednesday night. Information on what happened in that case came out over the next few days. And then on Friday, we had another insane plane crash that happened in Philadelphia when a Learjet just crashed into the middle of a city block. My sources say nothing happened yesterday or today, so that now makes 2 consecutive days without a catastrophic aviation incident. So I think we're back in that regard, maybe. But in D.C., the recovery effort continues. Yesterday, the Army released the name of the 3rd soldier who died in that Black Hawk helicopter. Now, of course, all 67 aboard the American Airlines flight from Wichita, Kansas to D.C. also died. The 3rd soldier identified as Captain Rebecca Lobach. There was a delay in identifying her at the request of the family. The National Transportation Board, their investigators have determined the plane. This is where it gets weird, is what's going on with the altitude. I mean, there are many things about this event that are weird, and I know next to nothing about aviation and air traffic control. And so all I have to go on is, does it look weird to me? And especially that latest angle where it looks like that helicopter should clearly see that plane and it doesn't. It almost looks intentional. Now, I'm not saying it's intentional because, again, I don't have knowledge of what normal piloting would do in that situation. I don't have knowledge of what air traffic control rules are. I just don't have the knowledge to say that's abnormal, that's weird. Just like I've seen planes and helicopters in the sky before, and that looks weird to a layman. But the odd thing, according to the National Transportation Safety Board, is the height of the helicopter. So they know, investigators know that the commercial airline, the commercial airplane coming from Wichita and landing, that was at an altitude of about 325 feet at the point that the helicopter collided with it. And that means that the Army helicopter was flying above 200 feet, which is the maximum altitude for the route that helicopter was on. Now, why was that helicopter so high? I can't tell you, but it clearly was apparently 100 feet plus higher than it was supposed to be. We'll get more information on that, I suppose, as the investigation continues. But then there's just the matter of digging all the wreckage out of the water, and unfortunately, that continues to be bodies as well. They're trying to pull the aircraft wreckage out. 42 bodies have been recovered, but that means, you do the math. There's a couple dozen still remaining, still uncovered. They might still be strapped into that plane wreckage, or maybe some. I don't know. Who knows? They might get moved by the water. They might not be recovered. It's a complete mess. And the one thing I keep thinking about, obviously the mystery of like what exactly caused this, and I don't have good information to speculate on why that would be, but I just think about the practical reality. What would that be like if most of us have flown commercially, of course, and you know what it's like to have that experience of coming in for a landing. And it's usually for people who have anxiety about flying, coming in for the landing, even though the landing might bother you a little bit, that's usually supposed to be a point where you kind of relax and it's like, oh, thank God it's over. Or if you just hate flying like I do, because everybody's been bumping your seat and people are reclining their chairs in front of you and all that nonsense, it's just a point of relief to get off the plane. But I'm just imagining what it would be like to be on a plane like that, expecting a normal landing imminently in the next few minutes. And then all of a sudden the shock of, we saw the explosion in the sky. The plane apparently split in two, Titanic style. So what is it like to be up in because not everybody died. You know that some people die on impact, but there are a lot of people on that. I mean, they all died, but they didn't die immediately. I should phrase that better. They didn't die immediately. So what would it be like to be on that plane in the air expecting a normal landing when in an instant the whole thing splits in half Titanic style? You're up in the sky. Maybe it's dark. I don't know what you can see, but maybe you can see all that water below you. You're 300 feet up in the sky looking down at nothingness and darkness below you. And you have that moment of realization, like, I don't know what just happened, but clearly I'm going to die imminently. And I can't imagine what that realization would be like for people who were involved in an incident like that. It's just got to be insanely terrifying. And of course, all the best to those families of those who were lost. Now, maybe the moment was similar in the Philadelphia plane too, as far as like you get that moment of realization, like, holy crap, I guess that's the end of my life. And you got about 10 seconds to think about it, if that, before it's over. In Philadelphia, this was basically immediate from takeoff. This was a Learjet 55. This is a small private jet. There are 6 people on board, or were 6 people on board this plane. They all died. The plane was operated by a Mexico-based company. On board was a pediatric patient who recently finished treatment at Shriners Children's Hospital. So young child, presumably some serious sickness, families coming from Mexico to get treatment. They take this kid to the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia and they leave and everybody is killed. So just hideously ironic. Everybody on board, including the pilot and co-pilot, were Mexican citizens. One person on the ground also died, but the explosion, apparently you just, at least witness reports, you get like body parts laying all over. Just an absolutely horrific scene on the streets. But the explosion actually lit several other structures on fire, several cars on fire. 22 people on the ground were injured. 5 remain hospitalized. 3 are in critical condition. Now, investigators say in this case that the plane came to Philadelphia from Florida in the afternoon on Friday, again, originating in Mexico. It departed Philadelphia at 6:06 p.m. and it crashed almost immediately. It was in the air for a minute. The plane climbed 1,500 feet and then it just, it had a little bit of movement. According to this report, it had a little bit of movement. They described it as climbing 1,500 feet, slight turn right, slight turn left, then just a steep descent and a crash. NTSB investigators haven't even found the plane's cockpit voice recorder. During a press conference earlier today, investigators said it could take weeks before questions about the crash are answered. So not a lot of information on that one either, but I'm sure we'll get more soon. Anyway, that brings us to our guest. I will go get him, Justin Nazaroff from Fenix Ammunition, and I will be right back.
Stand back and stand by.
My guest tonight is Justin Nazaroff, owner and operator of Michigan's Fenix Ammunition. Come for the ammo, stay for the memes. Check them out at fenixammunition.com. That's Fenix with an F, ammunition.com, at Fenix Ammunition on X. Justin, thanks for coming back to the show.
What's going on, man?
I'm quite all right. We were talking earlier about what we're going to talk about tonight. I saw the news last night of David Hogg being named vice chair of one of 3 vice chairs of the DNC, and I thought, holy crap, that's like, I mean, I couldn't think of a better topic. So I'm glad we get to celebrate the moment.
Could they have picked a better representative? I mean, just look at the guy.
Well, we know they didn't have an arm wrestling contest to decide who gets the leadership, right? But yeah, let me pull up the moment of David Hogg celebrating his this is, I guess, his victory speech last night.
Who's ready to take the fight to the Republicans and win this thing? Are you guys ready to fight? Let's go and kick some ass. Let's go win our young people back, and let's stop sending just our thoughts and prayers to address gun violence and do something. Are you ready to do that? Because together, we can make school shooter drills history and not headlines. Are you ready to do that? Together, we can address the housing crisis and so many other issues of our time that are affecting our young people. Because tonight, Malcolm and I won with your support. Thank you so much. You guys rock.
Your thoughts? Are you inspired?
No. I mean, they've already trained him how to speak. He's already like pounding on the lectern and lungs. It's really, they obviously haven't learned anything. But I was actually listening to Scott Adams this morning, and he was saying that this is sort of a watershed moment because here they are putting this white male back in charge of the DNC, and that seems to be in stark contradiction with everything that they've been pushing for the last 4 years. So what are they supposed to do? They couldn't win by putting Kamala Harris up, and so now they're going to circle back and put a bunch of white men back in charge of their party. They're just going to eat themselves alive. So I love it. I mean, I can't get enough of it. And it's weird with David Hogg because we've kind of seen him grow from a kid literally into this I don't know, Democratic robot cog in the machine or something.
I thought you were going to say man, and I was ready to correct you. But
yeah. Not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, going basically, he made his name in the Parkland shooting, and there's a whole range of disputes as to whether he was even there. But now here we are, some years later, and he's just been groomed and coddled, and you can just see all the pieces of the programming getting put. It's like watching a car on the assembly line. He's coming off the line now. He talks just like them. He's got his skinny jeans on just like them. He represents, I mean, he's in Generation Beta, is he not?
Well, in fairness, was he ever not in the skinny jeans? I don't know if I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But he's gained several inches in height. He's grown vertically over the last couple of years, but I don't think he's gained an ounce. So it's
probably not. I wish I had that photo. I should have pulled up that photo. Have you seen the photo of him with Jen Psaki from the last year or two?
Oh yeah, he's like a
proportionally. Yeah, he looks. Yeah. It looks like someone photoshopped it by just his feet are clownishly huge and his legs are these giant long stilt sticks because he's actually pretty tall. To your point.
Yeah.
And I hate to sit here and body shame a young man, but he is bizarre dimensionally. That is fair to say.
Yeah, he fits. I mean, he is the meme. The memes exist for a reason, and so whenever you see these guys, the memes with the real skinny guys and the scraggly beards, I mean, these things are real.
It definitely is noticeable that they picked now. There were two other vice chairs selected. One of them is a black guy, Malcolm Kenyatta from Pennsylvania, and then there's some guy named Artie Blanco from Nevada. So he's one of three. But then there's David Hogg, and then Democrats also selected the most generic white guy from Minnesota I've never heard of, but apparently ran the party there for years. Ken Martin. I've never heard of him. You've never heard of him. Nobody has. And it's not just contrary to this party's diversity message, but it's contrary to what they were saying at this very event. They all sat around, and when I say they all, I mean the candidates for the chairmanship or chairwomanship or chair they-ship or whatever it is. And they were asked, do you think racism and misogyny contributed to Kamala Harris's loss? And they all agreed that it was a factor.
Yeah, I'm going to I have a show of hands. How many of you believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Vice President Harris's defeat? Okay. So that's good. You all passed.
Self-aware. It's funny he says that, that's good, you all passed. And I know it's a joke, but is it really? Because they're all sitting there on pins and needles seeking that guy's approval. Jonathan, whatever his face is from the Washington Post or wherever he is.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's not joking. I mean, we know that it's as close to a cult as it's ever been on that side of the table. I mean, I can't tell you how many interactions I've had in the last month in, various aspects of life, at the gym, out at the store, sitting at the bar, watching a game, and seeing just the sheer amount of panic. I mean, I was watching one of the NFL games last week at a local place, and the game ends and it cuts to the local news real quick. And of course, it's all these videos of them like rounding people up at the border in Texas and them, ICE going into houses in Detroit and like you could just look around the bar and you could see maybe 20% of the crowd was like, smirking to themselves, kind of trying not to look. And then the other people, you could just see like conversations rippling through the tables as people are pointing at the TVs. And then if I look in the bar managers like furiously trying to change the channel before anybody sees. And just the panic setting in, and they just they just don't understand it. It's clear that they're trying to double and triple down on the same things that got them right here. And I mean, look at, again, going back to David Hogg, even with Democrats being in control of a lot of things the last few years, what have they really been able to advance on the gun control side? Really not much of anything at the state level, perhaps. But at the national level, we have more concealed carry reciprocity than we've ever had at any point. I mean, we have more states with constitutional carry than we've ever had at any point. So you just put a guy in vice chair of the DNC who's been cheering for a cause that's been clearly losing over the last 4 years.
And so, I think he contributed greatly.
Yeah,
I think he personally contributed greatly to that. And I don't know what surveys would say or something. I'll tell you personally, as a guy who has had his mind changed on gun stuff over time, and that David Hogg and the rest of those Parkland kids, they are what convinced me to get more serious about it, to learn about it, to arm myself, and to treat it much more seriously, because I thought that they were going to have more political momentum than they ultimately did. But when they had all their steam behind them after the Parkland shooting in 2018, for me personally, it was like, okay, these people are dead set on banning X, Y, and Z or making it harder to do A, B, and C. I should probably learn more about that. I should probably get more serious about that. And I know I'm one of many, many people who were personally persuaded and changed the way that they view these things and even change their behaviors on account of that guy. That guy is an amazing gun salesman.
Oh, yeah, he's an amazing gun salesman, but he's also shed a lot of light. I think before the Parkland shooting, it was obvious to people who were in the gun community that these anti-gun groups are actively trying to go after the next generation. They're trying to indoctrinate those kinds of ideas into kids as young as possible. But Parkland was the first time where you really saw the mobilization in the media and the sheer push where you thought, okay, how is it that all of a sudden all these student groups have hundreds of thousands of dollars to pour into these big campaign events, and ABC is there, and this is all like a big production. And I just looked around, it's like, what is going on? How is it that in like a week's time you have all these anti-gun groups just springing out of the ground like mushrooms? And that's, I think, for a lot of people is what made them start to notice just how astroturf these things can be. Well, you wake up and there's just this explosion of, social media is talking about this. All of a sudden, there's all this money getting poured in. And it's like, man, they can really create like a revolution in a sense overnight.
Totally. And I wonder constantly, like, is that the difference now, and why progressives and all their groups seem so defeated is just the money has dried up or something? But in his inspirational speech there, I don't have the clip, but David Hogg was bragging about his organizational capacity. Like, I knock the knock, I walk the walk, I'm going around convincing everyone, and look what I've built. It's like, dude, you happen to be in the general vicinity of your friends getting killed, and a bunch of people showed up with giant checks. You personally walking around a neighborhood would have done jack shit. But here you are pretending like you're some hero in their memory. If we could have a full audit, or like just an open publication of who cut what checks where, I guarantee that David Hogg had a lot of help in the walk that he's bragging about.
Oh, yeah. And not only did he have a lot of help, but most of that help was from Michael Bloomberg and, billionaires and people who they claim are the enemy when it's convenient for them.
Yeah.
But most of the funding that goes to the anti-gun groups is in some way connected to Michael Bloomberg. And I mean, that's public information. People think that that's like talking about George Soros or something, he always got his fingers in everything. But if you look at the financial backing of almost all of the prominent anti-gun groups. They're all basically groups of the same group. It's all money getting pulled out of one bank account, and they create 7 or 8 different groups to make it seem as if they have, this huge amount of overwhelming support. But the crossover between all those groups is very much the same. If you're a member of one, you're probably a member of all of them. So it's not nearly as big as what they make it seem.
Did you see the attempt by outgoing DNC chairman Jamie Harrison to explain the rules of gender in their selection of new leadership?
No, I don't think I saw this.
Let me play this one for. They have to have an equitable distribution of genders, so it has to be the same amount of men and women, I guess. But then there's the question of what do you do about the trannies and the non-binary people? On what side do they count?
Rules specify that when we have a gender non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender.
You follow?
No, I don't. It's what's funny is I'm gonna rag on libertarians for a moment. This is watching these things is to me almost the same as when the few number of times I've gone to like a libertarian convention or something, and you find that they spend most of their time arguing about like Robert's Rules of Orders and who's allowed to speak, and well, you didn't get this many, you didn't get enough hands raised to bring, this counterpoint, whatever, so we have to follow this rule. But that's what the progressive left does with this gender stuff. It's like, you guys are spending, no wonder you can never really get anything done. You're spending all your time trying to figure out how many of this person you need, how many of that person you need. But it's just insane that anybody can watch that, not even from an outside perspective, from an inside perspective, and not see that at very least this is a gigantic waste of time. And if they think Hitler's in charge, right? So like Hitler's in charge, the country's on fire, everybody's dying, but we have to make sure we have the right number of Zers in our panel here because we don't want to offend the right people. It's like, don't you guys have any sense of priority? I mean, shouldn't you be out like trying to find a way to get Hitler? Like
all they had to do was be a viable alternative to Hitler, and they can't do it. It's impossible.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Well, last point on the DNC, and I wanted to talk to you about your girl in Michigan, Whitmer, and then this Fifth Circuit decision on handguns and age restrictions. But there was actually a moment of song from one of the candidates, and her name is Dr. Quintessa Hathaway. What kind of doctor? I would like to know. Maybe the Jill Biden kind. But during this forum, her statement was she was just so emotionally driven to sing a song for some reason.
And we'll begin with the opening statements. Each candidate will have 30 seconds, and we'll start with Dr. Quintessa Hathaway.
Good evening, everyone. It is my desire to be the next DNC chair, and I just want to give you all a little bit of something that's been on my heart here over the last couple of days. You fight on, you fight on. You fight on, you fight on. When your government is doing you wrong, you fight on, oh, you fight on.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hathaway.
That's right. When your government is doing you wrong, add more government. That is always the Democrat Party solution to these issues.
I feel like I'm watching American Idol like 12 years ago or something.
I've definitely seen worse or heard worse in the American Idol trials or whatever they're called, the auditions, Auditions. But to your point, why was this stunning and brave singer of color passed over? They're all saying, yes, racism and sexism was a motivating factor in the rejection of Kamala Harris by the general electorate. But when we, as a Democrat Party organization, decide our leadership and we say no thank you to the stunning and brave singing black chick, that is not racism and sexism for some reason. We just go with the plain vanilla Minnesota white guy.
Well, they want to win. That's the end of that's just the end of it. They're not going to follow the rules when it means that they have an opportunity to win. And that's really, what angers us most of the time about people on the right and Republicans is that they're never willing to even bend the rules when the other side is clearly doing that. And so, that frustrates us more of the time. It's like, why can't you guys just forget the rules and, do whatever you want, slash and burn the way that they do? Because that's why they always win, right? They're losing on DEI, so we'll just ignore it for the time being to make sure that we can get back in the winning column, and then we can go back to pushing it on everybody else.
Yeah, they've just moved away from pursuit of ideas like the government can make you rich through all sorts of checks and opportunities that the private market doesn't provide. Now and I think people are receptive to that. Like, the government could provide me with education and could give me a job and could make life more economically beneficial for me. I think a lot of people believe that. And I used to believe that. But when you start doing the we have to count how many men and women and non-binary people, and everything is decided by race except for our decisions, which have nothing to do with it. They just their spirit remains the same, and the use of rules by convenience and the way you're describing is just in pursuit of what has changed. And I don't think people buy into that what anymore, but they're still sticking with it. And I'm delighted to see it because I can't wait to watch them lose some more.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is we're coming to the point where people are understanding that you can't apply, you can take DEI rules and you can apply them in professions and in cases where, like the HR department or something, where if your HR department is run terribly, like at the end of the day, it's probably not going to tank your company all that bad. But you can't do that in product engineering or product design, because then you end up killing somebody or making a product that's defective or whatever. And so I think we're getting to the point where people are starting to see the effects of pushing that in areas where it's critical, or noticing the fact that they are never, bitching about how many transgender Zs and Zers there are climbing power line towers in the middle of the night to get the lights back on. So I think all this is coming to a head. And I mean, it's been a busy 2 weeks, but we're only 2 weeks in, so we got a lot more to go.
Yeah, it has been a busy 2 weeks, and who doesn't like it is your governor, Gretchen Whitmer. And you mentioned that she's becoming a face of the resistance against, say, the deportation efforts and other things that the Trump White House is doing. But tell me a little bit about that. I saw that she was on The View this week too, so I had a clip I'd like to get your thoughts on, because she's saying this is all, a racist effort too. But what's going on with Whitmer and just deportations and her interaction with the Trump White House?
Yeah, well, I mean, Gretchen herself is trying to figure out what to do next. She's got 2 more years left as governor. She can't run again. So she's got to figure out if she's going to try to work her way into like a cabinet appointment. If they theoretically were to win the White House, is she going to run for Senate? She's trying to figure out what to do. And so in the meantime, everybody else, her little, gang of friends, Dana Nessel and Jocelyn Benson, they're all trying to position themselves to see who's going to lead the resistance for, the next 4 years after Gretchen. So it's been really interesting to see them all sort of circle around each other and try to see which one is going to be the one to pick. But, of course, Michigan was a big battleground state in the last election, not just for like immigration in this sense of things, but also because, we have Dearborn, there's a large Muslim and Arab population here. So you have issues going on with, the Israel-Palestine situation. And so, they've kind of been pulled in a lot of different directions. Michigan's a pretty complicated state. And so, she's not only having to deal with immigration and what's going on with ICE now locally, now she's got to deal with, tariffs and the trade war that we're going to end up probably having with Canada. So she's getting pulled in a lot of directions. It's going to be fun to see her try to fight all those battles at the same time.
Well, she was on The View with that crew this week, promoting her new book. I don't know what her book's about, but Sunny
Well,
Hostin.
her book isn't actually new. She's promoting a children, and believe it or not, her book, which was only, I think, 150 pages, she's pushing a new kids version of her book.
Oh, really?
So it's dumbed down to an even lower level of reading than her original one. Yeah.
Well, Sunny Hostin made the proposition on The View that, well, you know, whatever you think of the deportations, understand it's only people with brown skin. And Whitmer agreed with that assessment.
So what we are doing, again, is we have decided as a country to demonize a certain type of immigrant, a certain looking type of immigrant. And those immigrants are either from Central America or Mexico. They are brown. There are a lot of undocumented immigrants here, about 40% of them who come from other countries that aren't brown. But we are not rounding them up. So we are not doing that.
Is anyone rounding up Canadians? I haven't seen that.
That's a great question, because now the southern border seems to be the focus.
To your point, and you talked about how the skin tone of people who are being rounded up is different, how you're treated.
Yeah.
This is not breaking news, but it is.
It seems to be breaking news to a lot of people, though.
Yeah.
What else is different about them? Do they have any other distinguishing factors?
Distinguishing features? Yeah, I know. It's crazy to me. I mean, you have kids, I don't, but I mean, it's like, you know, imagine talking to a kid. You're like, but it's brown. And then you like give some long explanation, and then they're like, yeah, but daddy, it's brown. And you're like, oh, yeah, but I just explained to you, like, what, you know. It's insane. They have no ability to argue the merits of, you know, look, there's a lot wrong with the immigration system. It's clear that, you know, taking an extreme position on one end or the other is probably not tenable. And yeah, I mean, are there going to be some bad situations that go on with the deportations? Sure, there's going to be some people who get caught up in it that shouldn't, and you know that's going to be highlighted by the media to make Trump look bad. But at the end of the day, this has nothing to do with color. I mean, I don't care what, you know, no, like literally nobody is talking about the particular color of the people. Almost all of the focus is on, you know, people who are committing crimes.
Yeah.
And
everybody removed this last week has been either accused of or convicted of very serious crimes, sometimes many very serious crimes. And it's kind of, it's an interesting, obviously they're making racial commentary themselves there, but it's actually an interesting racial commentary the other way that I don't think they even realize they're saying. It's like, why were those people deported? Because they're committing very serious crimes. What are you saying about race and crime stats, for example, if all of them are brown and they've committed X, Y, and Z? Do we want to follow the logic of what you're explaining?
They don't want to go down that road.
No, it's just
and
because
her comment on, you know, oh, we don't see you deporting any Canadians. Why not? I mean,
yes,
I'd be happy to deport some Canadians. Let's get them out of here too. Like, I don't understand why you think we would be inclined, you know, if you had a Canadian murderer rapist and you had, you know, a Mexican murderer rapist, and they both came here illegally, why would you assume that I would want to keep one and not the other? I mean, that to me is the craziest possible conclusion that you could come to. It follows no logic, but that's part.
Yeah. Well, last thing I wanted to talk to you about before I let you go is this what is going to be a very important decision in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and that is so a federal appeals court panel ruled that the federal law that prohibits 18 to 20-year-olds from buying handguns is actually unconstitutional. And this is not a new law. This is from the Gun Control Act in '68. So this has been on the books for decades. But there have been challenges to it in light of Bruin, the Supreme Court decision a couple of years ago on New York's concealed carry rules that redid how the federal courts consider Second Amendment challenges and prescribed a new history and tradition test. And so we're evaluating the question of, well, is there a history and tradition of prohibiting 18 to 21-year-olds from having certain guns in this country? And the appeals court panel in New Orleans said, no, that is ahistorical, and so this law is unconstitutional. But what do you think about this?
I mean, I think it's great. This whole idea that we regulate pistols and rifles differently in and of itself is stupid and silly. And then again, that we further regulate the difference between a pistol and a rifle in terms of how old you can be over the age of 18 to purchase one. It's just ridiculous. Most of the Gun Control Act of 1968 and a lot of parts of the National Firearms Act are hopefully slowly going to be chipped away as things start to make, like silencers, for example. There's a lot of talk about, again, working to deregulate those things. Short-barreled rifles, that's really only regulated because they screwed up and wrote the law in such a way where originally they were trying to ban pistols and not rifles. And then we ended up with this weird situation that regulates, barrel length in particular situations.
Is that how it happened? I guess I don't know the history of how it came to be.
Yeah, basically the National Firearms Act was originally supposed to ban handguns, and they found that was going to be way too hard for them to pass. And so at the last minute, they changed it. But when they changed it, they didn't change the part of the law that regulated the length of the barrel on the rifle. And so you ended up with this situation that they didn't actually intend to create, where you have certain barrel lengths on rifles that are regulated in a way that they weren't actually intended to be regulated. So instead of going back and fixing it, and the government knows about that because the government sold a bunch of military surplus M1 carbine rifles, I think in the 60s, that were actually in violation of the NFA. They sold rifles to civilians that violated the NFA.
Of course they did.
And they had to go back and change the barrel length from 18 inches to 16 inches, which is why the barrel length for rifles is at 16 and the barrel length for shotguns is at 18.
Oh, I never understood that either. Yeah.
That's why, because the government made a bunch of felons and they had to go back and fix it. So like that, there you go. There's your government in a nutshell. We don't understand the laws we write. We create unintentional felons, and then instead of scrapping the law, we just make it even more convoluted to create more unintended felons.
So this new decision out of the Fifth Circuit is contrary to some prior decisions. There was an 11th Circuit panel in 2023 that upheld Florida's ban on gun sales to those under 21, and then a 10th Circuit panel in Colorado said that Colorado's age restriction law was just fine too. So now you've got appeals court circuits disagreeing on this question constitutionally, which means it is teed right up for Clarence Thomas and company, the guy who wrote Bruin, to evaluate this question. I don't know when that'll happen. The Supreme Court doesn't operate immediately, of course. But this is definitely a question that looks primed to be addressed in the next year or two, something like that. And we've also seen the Supreme Court just kind of balking at the question of quote unquote assault weapons lately too. But that'd be another question. It'd be nice to have them address. But who knows? Yeah. Speaking of wins and the future looking bright, nobody's sweating harder than Sonia Sotomayor right now. She's going to have to embrace that RBG energy to just hang on through the diabetes or whatever it is for the next 4 years.
I know. We'll see. I mean, that was honestly one of the biggest victories of Trump's first term. Really, that's the only really lasting thing I would say. It was the Supreme Court picks, and so it would be amazing to see him get one or two more, because they about lost their minds that he got as many as he did, and I just can't see them holding on to the last vestiges of sanity if he's able to pick two more.
Plus, they got to outdo Kavanaugh. And I know they had Barrett in the interim, but she's a chick. She gets a pass on that stuff. If he puts up another guy, they got to outdo the Kavanaugh show. And man, was that now that we're a few years removed from it, it doesn't piss me off as much, because it actually enraged me watching it back then.
Oh, for sure.
But now I can appreciate it for its entertainment value. And I want to see someone else's life ruined just to get on the Supreme Court. It was such a great show. What are they going to do next?
It's amazing to think how long ago that was. I was listening to another podcast the other day, and they're talking about there was a moment where Steve Scalise and Donald Trump were both up on the stage last week, and he said, isn't it crazy that two of the three Republicans on stage right now have been literally shot at in the last year?
Yeah.
Am I like, how am I just realizing this? I mean, like they've literally been shooting at Republicans for almost 6 years now, and nothing has happened. No.
Yeah. Those cases just kind of disappear, and they're explained away with this or that.
Down the memory hole. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my guest, Justin Nazaroff from Fenix Ammunition, phenixammunition.com, at Fenix Ammunition, Phoenix with an F, of course, linked in the description for you to find. Justin, is there anywhere else you'd like to direct people to find you?
No, check us out on the website, Phoenix Ammo, and of course here on X. That's where you can find our high-quality selection of memes and updates that you need to know about.
All right, man. Well, thank you for stopping by. It's a pleasure as always, and you can go ahead and see yourself out.
Thanks, guy, man. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you. Okay, there he goes. Justin Nazaroff, phenixammunition.com. I got to get our guy Knuckle Hunky Buck to do some super chat as well. So stand by once more. I'll be right back.
Stand back and stand by.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Knuckles.
And now it's time for Super Chats with Knuckle Hunky Buck.
I'm a knucklehead at times.
Hello, sir.
How's it going?
I am well. How are you?
Not too bad.
Well, are you ready for some super chats?
Yes, sir. Let's dive into it.
I'm sure you heard about our exciting returning giveaway. You know, can I mention your connection to the giveaway?
Of course.
Back last year when we were floating this idea with the hydroponics kit, I was like, I don't know what, I need a name. I need a name for it. I don't know what it is. I can't think of anything clever to label this hydroponics kit giveaway because that's wordy and hard to say.
So
and
of course you call in help with the cleverest super chatter of your chat.
I was like, can I contract the cleverness out? Let's get in touch with Knuckle Hunky Buck. And so the Tower of Babel hydroponics kit giveaway was born. That of course was a reference to the tower structure and Babel, like, you know, biblical
blah, blah,
reference and blah, blah, blah. Very genius creation. Just giving credit where due, you know. Over on YouTube. But Matt, we need 50 million taxpayer dollars to pay for condoms in Gaza. Without them, what'll happen to the poor goats? All right,
I'm too long dong John.
I'm going to give him an entry.
Love you.
I'm going to give him an entry for a goat joke to start us off.
Well, now if you use lambskin condoms on goats, that's like getting a third species involved entirely.
Okay, I'm going to give you.
I don't want to think about that anymore.
I'm going to give you an entry.
Love you.
I'm just kidding.
The game's rigged, people. The game's rigged.
No, we can't give it to Knuckle Hunky Buck. In fact, I think you were banned from winning the thing last time, I believe. Conflict of interest?
No, we talked about that, and I think I got an entry, but you gave me the consolation prize, which was the MC T-shirt.
Oh,
do you let me take my pick a T-shirt?
That sounds unusually nice of me, but I guess I'll believe you.
Well, I earned it. Come on. Some of the super chats I've written. Yeah. Anyways, CIA ghost. Sup.
Hello, CIA ghost. Sup. Injured Guardian says, urgent, work with Knuckle to find Robin D. Banks. I don't know what happened to Robin. I have no idea. Maybe you do. And I won't ask you to put information out there that's personal or whatever.
She when she came up in the show a few weeks ago, I actually got a little curious if she was still in the audience or anything like that. I had an email address of hers, and I sent her a message like, hey, have you been around lately? Some changes in the show, and well, you might be surprised to see who's helping him with super chats now. And then I got a reply back from like the system or whatever saying that email address was no longer valid. So.
Wow. Well, Godspeed to Robin. Speaking of marriages in the audience that could have been, would have been, should have been, Hunky Buck and Robin D. Banks. It got pretty hot in the chat there for a while.
If we're being totally honest, that was trolly enough that I'm not entirely certain that I believe that was actually a woman.
How dare you?
The world may never know. She's disappeared.
All right. Anyways, we've got Dwayne Thompson, not to be confused with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Dwayne Thompson. You should have said Chuck Todd will be remembered. It's more accurate for all the poundings he's taken for the bribery, I assume is what they mean. They have on him.
That's disgusting.
All right, Chuck Todd anal joke. Fine.
I love you.
I'll allow it. I want to be permissive, I don't want to like sit up here and make contest entry an impossible thing, all right, you might have to help me with the next one though, because the thing that's difficult about this is I have to keep record of these manually.
I just keep record of them.
You just remember. All right.
Yeah.
Give me another chat. Thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate it.
It's Daniel Jagger says, I expect Democrats and the MSNBC crowd to become born-again Friedman Knight capitalists and have us forget the gay race communism they imposed on us for 5 years.
They might. That would be an interesting direction to, if they were smart. Now, I don't think that's the route they're going to go based on what I just saw at their leadership event. But if they were smart, they would morph into that like Bill Clinton, it's the economy stupid thing where they just stop talking about all their gender and race nonsense and morph into economic populists again. And even though I disagree with a lot of their philosophy on that, there's no doubt that it's the most popular part of their platform. And they could recover if they did that, potentially, if they were smart. But apparently they're not. So.
Well, and Democrats actually are right. It is racism that is the reason that they aren't getting elected right now, and they're just not willing to give it up. They hate us too much, and they can't give up their racism.
I would say it seems like there's no room for white guys in the Democrat Party, but there's David Hogg and some guy named Ken Martin. So who knows? I guess you can ascend to positions of power in that party.
Does David Hogg count?
Fair point. I don't know. I don't know what his pronouns are, in fairness. Tortuga, I'm no Ethan Klein fan, but if you haven't seen the bomb he dropped on Brown Fabio, that's Hassan, Jenk's nephew, right? You need to watch it. It's enlightening and funny. I've seen people talking about it on X, and I haven't watched it, and I don't even know what the bomb is about. I did see friend of the show, Sean Fitzgerald, tweeting about something about like the guy he was saying Hassan was like parroting Hamas propaganda or something, but I don't know what was said. I don't know what all of it was.
I just wanted to hit back. I came up with a funny line for the David Hogg's pronouns were almost pew pew back in the day. Sorry, the Ethan Klein thing. No, Ethan Klein is a very irritating man. He's been funny in the past. Like I've definitely laughed at some of his stuff, but the more entrenched he gets in politics, the less tolerable he becomes.
I've never seriously listened to him. I know, based on my understanding of him, doesn't seem like I would agree with much of anything, but I've never I've never given him a serious listen, so I don't really know what his perspective is.
He's kind of goofy. He's got kind of a fun sense of humor, or at least he did before he started getting way too political with it. I don't know.
Here's another one about Chuck Todd. Is it your turn or mine? It's your turn.
Right? Yes, it is. Michael Weber. Chuck Todd is going to starve to death without his belly full of Democrat DNA.
I love you.
I'm going to allow all the Chuck Todd gay jokes. All right. Got to mark that one too. Thank you, Michael Weber. If you want to get me going with Logan here, if that's the next one. Although Logan, it's been a little while. I know Logan is Raju Mahan bait, so you might have to be careful.
All right, Logan Orr. I've been away for a good while. Are small hat jokes still welcome, or do they now own this channel now? Hope you've been well.
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's the Indians who own this channel, Raju Mahan and company. But maybe I don't know. I don't know who's behind Raju Mahan though. So we got to go up the chain of command.
Shalom, Logan.
Oh, well, I guess now we know who runs the show.
No, actually, if you look at Matt's new policy, we're reading just all super chats, not just $10 and up. So Matt actually took off his small hat.
Thank you, Logan. Welcome back to the show. Let's see. Ryan Cunningham, bring back the Library of, well, it says Library of Colors Rage, but Library of COD Rage. If I had time, unfortunately, no, I shouldn't say unfortunately. That's a terrible way to phrase it. Fortunately, I have become a husband and father, and so I no longer have time to play Call of Duty. And, my life has kind of moved on. But I do certainly miss, in ways, the simpler time of just playing Call of Duty and talking shit with people on the internet. And when that shit talking was free and open in the way it was in, say, like the late 2000s, early 2010s era, I miss those days. And they're long gone, and Xbox has basically banned that stuff now anyway.
Yeah, it's too bad that you can't find anybody to talk shit with on the internet anymore,
I know.
Isn't it?
Well, the thing is, it has to be strangers, and they have to tell you how much they appreciate your mom, and they have to use words that you can't say on YouTube anymore. And
well, see, that's the problem is I'm not the type of person that's going to disparage somebody's mother.
Come on, that was teed up, man. I had to take it. Okay.
Wash your mouth out with Hero Soap.
Yeah,
go to Hero Soap, people, and use code Granny Hunky Buck is a decent woman for a 10% discount.
When are they going to offer you your signature soap? I need to reach out and say he needs one. Okay, I am going to pause on YouTube. Sorry, go ahead.
People don't want to smell like me.
We need a scent for that laundry and all of it. We need a scent for the whole scene. I'm not sure it will sell well, but it will be a great meme. Anyway, I'm going to stop on YouTube and Tippy for there. I'm going to catch up on Rumble. Is Rumble working for you?
It is. I'm starting with Yakko 1977. Do we not have one from Elbot?
I do not see Elbot. Thank you, Elbot. We appreciate your support for the show. But yeah, I don't see Elbot.
I don't see him either.
Where the hell is Elbot?
Maybe he didn't. Come on, Elbot. We need you to pop in and pay
Give me
us
my money, man.
For,
no, of course not. Just thank you.
Your
Elbot.
lunch money.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Yakko 1977. I've seen some clips of that DNC meeting, and if there's anything I took from that shit show, it's that the Dems haven't learned a damn thing from their loss in this last election, at least for now.
Yeah, that is encouraging. And I think there's generally it's wise to be careful what you wish for. But man, I don't think that wisdom applies with David Hogg. I'm not nervous about David Hogg having a national political win at all. That does not scare me at all. It's hilarious how these people recognize that the Democratic Party has a problem with men, and specifically young men. And their solution is David Hogg, the guy that no young man wants to be.
You see, you're counting David Hogg out, and that's like his strength is he comes through when people don't believe in him. That's when he really shines.
He rides his bike away when he's most needed.
Do you remember when
they said?
Do you remember when they said it couldn't be done, that he could start a pillow company, and he launched a website that said that he started a pillow company.
Is Good Pillow still a thing? I know they like sold. It was.
They
good.
said it could never be done. They said it could never be done, and there we saw the website.
You know, speaking of, you mentioned unfortunately Robin's email address bounced. I remember it was goodpillow.co, and look what happens. This site cannot be reached. It's gone. Where's Good Pillow?
They said it couldn't be done, but then he did it, and then he's done with it now. That's fine.
It's off the internet. I don't think it even exists anymore. They said it couldn't be done, but I made a website that was briefly online, and then I offloaded the actual work to some other company and never did any of it. Thank you for that reminder of David Hogg's many business accomplishments. Okay, Hottie Twerkman. This rhyme goes out to Joshy Boy. Dank DeMoss is my kind of girl. I want to get me into Dank DeMoss world. It's over, it's under, it's in between. If it could talk, I'd say, I can't breathe.
I love you.
I will happily accept a Dank DeMoss rap. Now, I don't know if you saw Dank DeMoss, Hunky Buck. This obese rapper, you familiar?
No.
Okay, so Dank DeMoss, I discussed her on Wednesday's stream. She's like I didn't know how much she weighed, but you could look her up. Dank, it's Dank, D-A-N-K, DeMoss, D-E-M-O-S-S. She's suing Lyft because Lyft could not, in fact, lift her, as in a Lyft driver refused her service because she's too obese. And so now she's suing using Michigan anti-discrimination law, and this was a rap about her. So...
I can't wait to look that up as soon as I get up.
Yeah, it's a riot. She's 500 pounds. I estimated she was like 300. No, she's 500. Okay. Let's get to Evil. You got Evil Zombie Toe?
Yep, I've got Evil Zombie Toe. I'm both an Apache pilot and a commercial helicopter pilot. I don't have the funds to write out all the factors involved, but this was 100% pilot error and bad tower coordination, purely accidental.
Yeah, it's hard for me to, as I mentioned, I have no knowledge to comment on who's at fault. Like, is that air traffic control people? Is that the pilot? What are we looking at here? The footage in both cases is totally weird, though. Like the better footage of the helicopter hitting the plane looks like, I mean, to the layman, it's like, how could you possibly not see that plane? And then the one crashing in Philadelphia is just like a missile out of the sky. That thing was completely insane.
Well, I think one change that they need to make is in Apache helicopters, what they need to do is they need to remove the rear view mirror, because I think that she was putting her makeup on in the...
Get the hell out of here.
Come on, man. Too soon. Okay, Evil Zombie Toe. Though that was Evil Zombie Toe. Thank you, Evil Zombie Toe. Appreciate your insight as well. Pseudo Biden. If you want to stop cartels and drug overdoses, just end the prohibition on drugs. Just like alcohol prohibition before, drug prohibition only supports cartels' death and the violation of rights. Man, I have a lot of... I think that the drug issue is a very difficult one to think about how it should be solved. Because on the one hand, if we simply allowed all of these products to be in the market like anything else, when I say all of these products, I mean like the drugs that are coming from Mexico or maybe through Canada or from China, the devastating effects we're watching right now. I mean, you're hundreds of thousands of fentanyl overdoses a year at this point. That said, do I have a lot of faith that the government crackdown is going to be extremely effective? I mean, nobody fucks up anything like the federal government does. So it's hard to have faith that they are going to swoop in and fix this problem. I would say that I think there are a class of drugs that exist that are impossible to consume without necessarily affecting others. Like the argument for having no laws on drug distribution, consumption, just legalizing all of that is, well, you only criminalize, you only punish abuse of others, violation of others' rights. So simply consuming the drug or possessing the drug doesn't violate the rights of another person. Therefore, we ought not to treat that as a criminal matter. I think there exists a class of drugs that make you necessarily a burden on others. I think we've watched that in Portland, in Seattle, in Oregon. They straight up legalized all the drugs, and you saw this effect. You necessarily become a burden on society and other people's problem. So I think there's that component.
Maybe the market solves for that, though. Like, I mean, if you legalize everything, then maybe what happens is you have companies that will capitalize on, like, you know, like making gummies and stuff like that, and like just selling stuff in like tobacco shops and stuff
Fentanyl
like that.
Gummies, of course.
Well, but that's the thing,
Yeah.
is that companies probably won't actually ever get involved with the really dangerous ones because they have so much to lose from, you know, like if a company actually sells fentanyl gummies and they start killing their customers, then they actually get held accountable for it.
Unless
as long
it's
as drugs
Pfizer,
are illegal
and it's safe and effective.
Shit, that's actually a super legitimate point.
Yeah. No, it's hard. I'm joking, of course, but it's a hard one to navigate. Let me put it this way. Even though I do think that cracking down on this and trying to stop the drugs from entering our country is a good thing, if I were to entertain the idea that this stuff should just be fully legalized, the best I can say for that argument is there is no government policy that is better than the ultimate policy, which is y'all motherfuckers need Jesus, okay? Stop consuming the drugs, stop doing so many drugs, and you're not going to have a fentanyl problem because you don't get fentanyl in your ham sandwich or something like that. At least not yet. They haven't figured that out, but maybe they will. My point is, if we had
put fentanyl in your ham sandwiches,
maybe you do. That explains a lot if you do. But if we have a proper culture with a solid moral core that, number one, has no appetite for these drugs, and number two, has supportive families who keep their members out of the consumption of those sorts of drugs, that is a fix that is much more viable than the federal government threatening to imprison you. I'll certainly grant that point. It's just much easier said than done. How do you just kind of wave your finger at these people, like, stop being degenerates and stop doing all those drugs? It's great in theory. Does it work in practice? I don't know.
well, and basically, as much as we can cut out cartels, I think that's if you make things legal, at least we're not bringing cartel members in with colons full of drugs.
I guess, yeah. I'll get literally anybody else cooking up the drugs would be better than those people down in Mexico. I've seen the videos, as I've referenced many times, and it's I'll never get those images out of my head. What they do to people is unimaginable. I mean that literally. They do things that I'd never conceived of in my mind. They do them. If you think you've seen torture, you haven't seen it until you've seen a cartel torture video from Mexico. Promise you that.
With the soundtrack from Lips Inc.
Canadian Egg, last one for now. Don't doubt the Hogg. Didn't doubt the Hogg was going to cruise to victory. He's an inspiration. Wait. He's an inspiration to kids and can really blow them away. I
love you.
There's some cleverness there, although.
Have there been accusations about Hogg at all?
No, he's making jokes about shooting kids. Not.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It sounds like a pedophile joke. It's not.
Yeah, no, and I just kind of assumed it was because Democrat looks like that.
Fair enough. A perfectly valid assumption, I would say. For legal reasons, I'm not accusing David Hogg of.
We're not accusing David Hogg of being a standard Democrat.
Pseudo Biden has another thought here on the drug issue. Overdoses increase as the crackdown increases. The reason why you get overdoses is because you can't know what's actually inside the drugs and the dosages. Okay, I mean, I'm sure that's part of it. I guess the counterpoint would be how then will you know what's in those drugs reliably? And how do you do that without, say, some sort of government intervention to regulate it or hold those accountable who lie about what's actually in their drug product? Is there a market correction for that problem? Like, oh, I thought I was taking like some party drug and it turns out it was full of fentanyl and now I'm dead because I went to the wrong college party.
Oh, and I mean, that's where I think like like free market capitalism meets like a moderate amount of government regulation. Like, you know, like when you look at the label for like a food item or like, you know, like a beer or something like that, and it, you know, like it better meet the standards, or, you know, then they actually have a problem. But the government getting involved to tell us what we can and can't take in, I think that's the happy medium, is some government regulation just on like making sure that what's there is what's said is there.
Well, congrats on fence riding harder than I do.
Congratulations, butthead.
All right. Just a couple more on Odyssey. We'll call it good. Blankets.
Just put a beanie on for this if I'm going to do that.
Matt, do you think Tulsi and Christie are good picks? I'm going to get to Tulsi in a moment. And Kristi Noem, I don't really have a problem with Kristi Noem. I like the way that she handled COVID in South Dakota. I think that sometimes she's a little like photo op-y, and that's this stuff that's going on with the deportations looks a little photo op-y to me. Like, oh, here I am all glammed up to go get some Guatemalans or something. All right, I appreciate that the deportations of the criminal aliens are happening. I don't know that I need the Kristi Noem glamour shot to improve it, but overall, certainly a better job than the last guy. So I can't argue with that. And I'll get to Tulsi in a little bit. Also says, Matt, what do you prefer, Italian food or Chinese food? Italian by a mile, and it's not close. I despise Chinese food. I could tolerate Panda Express, but that doesn't really count. I also hate Indian food. Both of those are pure trash.
Okay. No, I love me some Chinese food. I like Italian food. I love Chinese food. Oh wow, sweet and sour chicken,
awful.
General Tso's chicken, like
I prefer their COVID chicken, much
beef
better.
And broccoli, like
you mean beef and broccoli?
Beef and broccoli,
yeah.
And they have this really good like bat soup. You got to try.
Exactly. That's where they lost me. Is that Wuhan bullshit? All right, man. Anything you want to say before you're out of here?
No, I just like this. I wanted to thank you for like giving me the opportunity to do this whole super chat thing. It's been really cool, and like I've always kind of been my biggest critic, and since reading your comment section under videos after they're posted, like it's nice. I've actually been able to knock that down to like I'm probably only like my 5th biggest critic. So.
Well, congratulations once again.
Congratulations, butthead.
And now, as usual, get the hell out of here.
All right.
Get the hell out of here.
All right, there he goes. We always appreciate our friend Knuckle Hunkybuck.
I'm a knucklehead at times.
For helping us with Super Chat. And of course, the rest of you, I'll be back with you shortly at the end of the stream. Thanks for supporting the show.
I'll have to just circle back with you.
All right, got to get back into the news. And what did I leave off with? I think it was these firings coming to the Justice Department and the FBI. And it turns out, I guess, a lot of people are getting fired down there.
Good.
So on Friday, the interim U.S. attorney for D.C., this is a guy named Edward R. Martin. Edward R. Martin fired 30 federal prosecutors who worked on January 6th cases for the last 4 years. The pink slips went out on Friday. Now, all of these people who were fired were part of the now disbanded Capitol Siege prosecution section, or some sort of group that they had dedicated to the Capitol Siege. But 30 is a lot. It sounds like a lot, at least, but that's actually only 8% of just that office's prosecutors. Now, when it says that office, I guess I'm a little unclear. Do they mean this Capitol Siege office? Where does it say that in the report? Let me find it. The cuts amount to 8% of that office's prosecutors. And the previously referenced office is not, say, the DC office or the office of the U.S. Attorney for DC. It's this Capitol Siege prosecution section. So that tells me that there were actually 375 prosecutors working on just January 6th alone, if I'm understanding what the Washington Post is reporting here. So I guess firing 30 people, that's barely even a start. The White House is saying this is actually not political retribution. apparently, well, according to the White House, they're saying this was all about Biden. Where is it in the report? This is like a million miles long. Now, usually you have to scroll down that far in a Washington Post story to find what matters, but I guess it's not as far down in this one. Yeah, the acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove said that the termination of these prosecutors was actually a response to their hiring, which was a subversive action by the Biden administration that hindered Martin, the acting U.S. Attorney for D.C., his ability to hire staff and to make that office the way that he and Trump want it to be. So if I understand correctly, before Biden left, they made a move in this D.C. office to make a bunch of temporary people who were working on January 6th permanent, as it means to undermine the incoming Trump people, and now they're getting rid of them. There was also a notice directed to all of these fired people that they need to retain documents related to personnel decisions regarding attorneys hired to support casework. So apparently, those staffing and contracting decisions will now be under investigation pursuant to Trump's executive order about weaponizing law enforcement. Now, the FBI is also in the process of what could be a significant purge. Also on Friday, acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove sent a memo to the acting FBI director telling him to fire 8 FBI employees and identify all current and former FBI personnel assigned to January 6th and Hamas cases for internal review. The deadline to fire those 8 specific employees is Monday at 5:30 p.m. The deadline to identify the other people is Tuesday at noon. Now, unless I'm missing something, this report does not identify those 8 people. Fox, in making this report, says they're in possession. They've obtained that memo. So I guess they know who the 8 people are, but they're not named here, as far as I've seen. This Hamas case they're talking about. So this is the deputy, the acting Deputy Attorney General saying, identify all the people who are working on January 6th stuff, please, because we want to review that. Also, these people who worked on this Hamas case. Now, what is this Hamas case? That apparently was charges that were filed against 6 Hamas leaders related to October 7th, but I don't know a lot of the details on that particular one. But they are interested in evaluating how all of that was handled. Now, the best part of this particular piece of news isn't even just the firing of people who made federal law enforcement a weapon and a weaponized arm of Joe Biden's politics. And that's not even enough. Just firing them is not really enough. These people got paid for their abuse and then they left. I'm sure there are many of them who probably should be prosecuted for what they did. But if you are hungry for counter prosecution, well, maybe that's coming. Because now Chuck Schumer is potentially in legal jeopardy. Now, as always, I don't want a country where whoever is in power just uses law enforcement to target his opposition. That's not going to be a country for long. However, I also recognize that a taste of their own medicine is perhaps the only thing that's going to teach this lesson adequately, outside of, say, actual war. So if someone has to step right up to operate by the rules that he himself established or helped to establish, Chuck Schumer, excellent candidate for such a thing. If those are the rules of the last 4 years, well, maybe those rules will stick around for just a little while longer. But as part of the Washington Post reporting on this story, the report says that the interim D.C. attorney, Edward R. Martin, who's firing all those January 6th prosecutors, he is looking into investigating, yes, Senator Chuck Schumer. Why? Because back in 2020, at a public abortion rally, Chuck Schumer implicitly threatened Supreme Court Justices Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. Here was the moment, which you may recall.
Taking away fundamental rights. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
Now, do I personally think that that was a threat outside of the First Amendment's protection? No, I think that the incitement standard requires something much more specific. You need imminence. as in it's going to happen immediately. You need a likelihood of it actually happening. Schumer did not make an imminent call to action. He didn't really describe anything specific that was likely to happen. But the question here is not really what does the First Amendment case law say? It's what are the standards of the people who tried to make, say, Trump's January 6th speech illegal? And if Trump can't go up there and say, fight like hell, or go peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol, and we're going to treat that as some kind of crime, well, Chuck Schumer certainly can't say the things that he just did. And so Martin, the acting D.C. prosecutor, sent a letter to Schumer on January 21st saying he takes threats against public officials very seriously, and he looks forward to Chuck's cooperation. Now, back when this happened in 2000, Chuck Schumer did walk the statement back. He didn't apologize, but he did say that he worded it incorrectly. He shouldn't have used the words that he did. He said he didn't intend to make a threat. He said he meant that there would be political consequences for those justices if they did what they inevitably or ultimately did, which was overturn Roe v. Wade. But even that potentially could have some legal implications. Threatening judges with political consequences, negative consequences of any kind for their decision-making on the bench, that can be a legal problem. And at the very least, it violates the principle of the independence of that branch of government. Whatever the case, if we actually get charges against Chuck Schumer, which is a big if, I kind of doubt that that's actually going to happen. But hey, it's closer now than it ever has been. That is going to be another amazing show to watch. But speaking of FBI and intel community corruption, Trump's pick to clean it up, or his picks rather, they had their confirmation hearings later this week, and they are both going to face razor-thin confirmation votes as expected. Now, after the absolute nonsense of the Pete Hegseth hearing and then the RFK hearing earlier this week, where Bernie Sanders is demanding that RFK condemn baby outfits, all the shrill female shrieking for hours in both of those hearings, I'm kind of hearinged out. So did I sit down and listen to both of these hearings in full? Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence and Kash Patel for FBI Director? I did not. But there were a couple of interesting moments I think are worthy of highlighting. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is in the position of having potential enemies or actual enemies on both sides. Republicans and Democrats both don't like her. Number one, because she's critical of the surveillance state, and they all get together in their love of spying on you. And because she has suggested at times, maybe we shouldn't support Ukraine to infinity and beyond. And because there was that one time that she, when she was in Congress and she met with former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. So Tulsi Gabbard, she loves Putin. She loves that former Syrian dictator, and she doesn't want to let the rest of these members of Congress spy on everyone whenever they want, or the intel community to do that on their behalf. She's become an enemy of both parties, enemy of the intel community, and there are plenty of questions that I personally have about Tulsi as well. She was a Democrat on the Democrat presidential debate stage like 5 seconds ago or 5 years ago, whatever that was. And she was in favor of massive government spending, massive government involvement in healthcare, gun control, all the Democrat staples, or at least a lot of them, most of them. One thing we never hear, or at least rarely hear from Tulsi, though, hey, Tulsi, why did you go to Syria? Oh, Tulsi Gabbard went to Syria. She loves Assad. Oh, can you believe she went to Syria? Why did you go to Syria, though? It's a fair question. When asked, it's hard to deny any of the premises in Tulsi's answer. Why did you go to Syria?
When, as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, working with and arming and equipping al-Qaeda in an effort to overthrow that regime, starting yet another regime change war in the Middle East. Over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak. While these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like Al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack.
As summarized by Sean McGuire on X, okay, imagine you enlist in the military after 9/11, you go to Iraq. Later, you learn that the CIA was running an operation to arm Islamist rebels in Syria. And hey, now you're on the House Armed Services Committee. And maybe you'd like to have a look-see about what's going on with that. Is the rabid opposition to Tulsi Gabbard, is it really about her cozying up to American enemies when the premise of her investigation was, hey, are we getting really cozy with people who probably should be or are American enemies, as in radical Islamic rebels? Even taken at its worst, oh, she went there to meet with Assad and was very friendly with Assad. Well, this is a lot of the criticism that applied to Trump with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. Why is it bad to talk to our enemies? It's a dumb point. Now, you have to have firm limits. You have to have rules. You have to have things you're not willing to surrender. But in general, why is it, we should never, ever talk to our enemies? That's a dumb rule. Because the alternative is war all the time. Do you want war all the time? Are you openly advocating war? Talking is a great way to avoid war, you know, in many cases. That's a dumb question on my part, though, because, of course, her fiercest critics often do want forever, perpetual, nonstop, constant war. They love it. And I think it's fair to wonder how that informs their opposition to her. Now, again, I'm not Tulsi stan. I'm not Tulsi fanboy. Got a lot of questions about Tulsi. It's just, in general, her philosophy of the surveillance state and about American foreign policy is actually not what makes me nervous about her. It's a lot of the things that she has believed or formally believed on domestic policy, but that's not really her role in this job. Anyway, as far as the prospect for confirmation, it's going to be tough, and it might not even happen. It sounds like Tulsi might not even advance out of committee. The Senate Intel Committee that just questioned her, there are 9 Republicans and 8 Democrats. And you got at least 2 Republicans who are already talking about rejecting Tulsi. This weekend, or at least there are reports that maybe they will. This weekend, there are reports that Todd Young of Indiana is considering voting against Tulsi. Susan Collins of Maine also sits on the Intel Committee. It was reported last week that she may do the same. Now, Tom Cotton chairs this Intel Committee. The only recourse he might have there is just to put all these senators on record with a public panel vote so we can see who's saying yes and who's saying no, and they're not doing it behind some anonymous vote or behind closed doors. There's no confirmation of who's going to vote how now. But of course, with 2 potential defections already, and that's if Tulsi makes it to a floor vote in the Senate, if you assume unanimous Democrat opposition, which is a safe assumption for all of these nominees, even though some of them have been getting wide support, Tulsi can only afford to lose one more in that situation. As in, she's already lost 2. Potentially, you could lose one more and still get through the way Hegseth did with a J.D. Vance vote. But there's Lisa Murkowski looming in the background. Josh Hawley is quoted in this reporting saying he has some hesitation. Jerry Moran, John Curtis also have expressed hesitation. Very dicey territory for Tulsi. Not at all probable that she will get confirmed, though still certainly possible. But again, what else could you expect? There is broad bipartisan agreement on a few things. Spying on you and laundering money through foreign wars, both parties tend to agree on with enthusiasm, at least many of the members of both parties. There was also the hearing for Kash Patel, for FBI director, and he's trying to walk the tightrope between standing up against FBI corruption and all the stuff we've watched for not just the last 4 years, but even prior to the first Trump term with all the Russiagate stuff. So he's trying to stand up to that, and he's also trying to convince Senate skeptics that, well, he's not just a Trump puppet. He's his own man. He won't do exactly what Trump tells him to do. At one point, Kash Patel even said he disagrees with Trump's decision to pardon violent January 6th offenders. He said he would also not participate in political targeting of Trump's enemies with the FBI. There were a couple of highlights from this hearing that aren't hugely consequential, but I just think are hilarious. The only person more clownish than Bernie, do you support the onesies, Sanders? The only person more clownish than him is, continues to be Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono. Apparently, Mazie Hirono now just opens her questioning of any Trump appointee, asking if they've ever committed sexual abuse of any kind. She did it to Doug Burgum the other week, even though there was no such accusation against Doug Burgum. Now she's doing it to Kash Patel, even though, again, there is no such accusation against Kash Patel.
Before any of my committees, since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
She's doing the meme.
No, Senator, I have not.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator, I have not.
Mr. Patel, have you ever grazed a boob in a crowded elevator? No. She just does this every time. Mazie Hirono is one of the first people that AI will replace. An AI senator representing Hawaii would be much more intelligent, far less robotic. But I guess, hey, at least she's consistent, and that's more than many in her party can say. Now, Lindsey Graham also asked Kash Patel if people are sometimes racist to him. And Kash said, yes, they often are, sometimes with the hard R. And he used the hard R.
You ever been subject to racism as an individual?
But fortunately, Senator, yes. I don't want to get into those details with my family here.
Oh, let's get into a few of them. Tell me about it.
Well, if you look at the record from January 6th, where I testified before that committee, because of my personal information being released by Congress, I was subjected to a direct and significant threat on my life. I was called a detestable sand nigger who had no right being in this country. You should go back to where you came from.
I thought he was Indian. Now, sand ends, aren't they like Arabs? What are the regional boundaries of sand ends? And what kind of ends are Indians? Are they Taj Mahal ends? Are they curry ends? Are they H-1B ends? I don't know. I need clarification. What kind of ends are Indians? Bipti, by the way, will always be the best anti-Indian slur, as we learned through the hoax hate segment on this show. Guy spray painted some sort of anti-Indian slur on the side of his Indian restaurant that started with a B, and the news report censored it out. So going through the racial slur database looking for anti-Indian that starts with B, the only one that made sense was Bipti. And what is a Bipti? Well, that is the cashier at 7-Eleven when he says whatever item you're buying is $1.50. But will Kash Patel be confirmed? It looks like he's maybe in better position than Tulsi Gabbard is, insofar as I haven't seen a lot of Republican senators speaking in opposition to him. In this report, nobody is mentioned. This is Politico's reporting after the hearing. Nobody's mentioned from the Republican Party in explicit opposition. So like the rest of Trump's nominees, then assuming Democrat unanimous opposition, which is probably a safe assumption, that leaves him with 3. He could lose Murkowski. He could lose Collins. Someone like McConnell still get that J.D. Vance vote. Kash Patel is not a lock, but Kash Patel's got to be in better position than Tulsi Gabbard is. Maybe Mazie Hirono can swoop in with a sexual assault allegation last minute and sink Kash, but odds are pretty good that he's going to be your FBI director. And we'll see. We'll see about Tulsi Gabbard. But that brings us to hoax hate time. And now, the nobody saw it happen, but it's totally a product of Trump's America hoax hate crime of the week.
Ah, shit, it's backwards. You think they'll notice?
In Toledo, Ohio, a Muslim man named Kedar Abdullah Turnbull says he is the victim of an Islamophobic road rage incident in which he was kind of beaten up, but really just hit by a truck. He's currently in crutches as a result of being hit by that truck. But if you listen to the story, there are a lot of questions about the origins of this conflict and the reason why the incident turned physical.
The scars are both physical and emotional for Kedar Abdullah Turnbull. Dark purple and yellow bruises cover his legs, but he says the real damage is the trust he's lost for the public.
This is adding on to my PTSD.
His alleged attacker, Casey Bowdoin, currently sits in Lucas County Jail, charged with felonious assault. Turnbull says the two first encountered each other after an innocent mistake, when Turnbull started driving the wrong way down a one-way road off of Eastgate.
He swerved to get as close as he possibly could to my car.
Turnbull quickly figured out his mistake and turns around, but Turnbull says Bowdoin hadn't had enough of him.
He swerved to the right, brake checked me, then threw his hands up, swerved to the left again, brake checked me again. He pulled into this parking lot, so I pulled in, just trying to figure out what's going on.
The two step out of their cars, and Turnbull says Bowdoin was immediately hostile, cursing, swearing, and making comments about him.
They called me a towel head.
At this point, Turnbull is on edge, and he says Bowdoin starts to reach for something inside his car.
My PTSD kicked in, and I thought he was going to grab a gun. So all I did was reach in to stop his arm. This dude grabs onto my arm, he presses on the gas, starts dragging me, says, "How do you like that? Blah, blah, blah." Drops me, so I drop onto the pavement. 5 seconds later, I notice that his van has the reverse lights on. I hear the engine rev, so he slammed on the gas pedal.
Turnbull says he barely had time to move before Bowdoin's Ram truck hit his left side, sending him flying. But he says what really hurts is the belief he was attacked for the way he worships.
They have this hatred towards us as Muslims, and they don't even know why.
Fucking owned, bitch!
I'm pretty sure that guy knows why he hates you, though. It's because you drove down the road the wrong way and then confronted him, and then apparently put your arm inside his truck. That's why he hates you as a Muslim. Now, I didn't know they actually pronounced it that way. I've heard Ann Coulter sort of mockingly pronounce it that way. A real-life Somali Muslim. But I guess actual Muslims say it Muslim. Anyway, let's recap the events here. You're driving the wrong way down a one-way. Okay, that happens. I have done that before in in a city center. It's very embarrassing. It doesn't justify a physical attack. It's a bad mistake, though. And other drivers are probably going to be angry with you if you're just driving the wrong way down a one-way. And that they're going to be angry with you for very legitimate reasons that have nothing to do with your Muslim faith. But the two exchange in some kind of typical road rage behavior. There's yelling, there's brake checking, there's middle fingers, whatever. And then this supposed attacker, Casey Bowdoin, does what? He pulls away from the guy into a parking lot, as in Casey Bowdoin, the alleged attacker, he left this guy. He moved away from this guy. He pulled off the road into a parking lot. And then what? The Muslim guy then pursues him. The Muslim guy goes to the parking lot. Well, I was trying to see what was going on, he says in the story. Yeah, I bet. You were confused about what had happened. You describe yelling, you describe road rage, brake checking, and aggressive driving. You describe him shouting at you, and I think I'll go investigate. I'll say, what seems to be the matter, sir? I bet that's what happened. So, dude leaves the scene and pulls off into a parking lot to get away from it. This guy continues. This guy goes up to him. And they have a discussion about what's going on. They step out of the cars. They're talking some shit, according to his account. And then the alleged attacker, Casey Bowdoin, goes back to his car. And then this Muslim goes to that guy's car and reaches in his car to stop him. Oh, man, I don't know. my PTSD kicked in. I thought he had a gun. The guy tried to leave the scene. You pursued him. After an argument, you went to his car and put your hands inside of his car. And then you got tossed around. Okay, if the guy actually did what he said he did, which is like drive away in a way that injured him, but then stop and reverse and go hit him in reverse, okay, then that probably is not a self-defense incident to the extent he was leaving and decided to return to cause more damage to the guy. But who made this incident physical? It was the Muslim by his own description of events. And if I don't know who the hell you are and we've been in some sort of public dispute and you're reaching inside my car, you're lucky you don't get shot, man. Consider yourself lucky to have those giant bruises on your legs. Because you start having road rage and then entering a parking lot and you're yelling at a guy and you put your hands inside his car.
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah, you're lucky to have the bruises and not a wound more severe. Why do they hate Muslims? Maybe it's because you pursued him and then you put hands on him, actually. That would be why. So good luck with your colorful leg. And we'll see. The other guy, this guy's not in jail. There's no charges against it. The other guy's sitting in jail right now on $100,000 bond. That's the justice system at work in this case. When this guy's doing news stories saying, yeah, I pursued him. Yeah, I put my hands in his car. And I get it. Like I said, if the guy reversed, if the guy had the opportunity to leave and then came back with an aggressive intent, then your self-defense argument kind of is damaged there. But you can't tell me that this Muslim was not an aggressor. And if you're going to arrest that guy, I don't know how you don't arrest this Muslim guy doing news stories saying, yeah, I put hands on him, but, you know, he hates me just because I'm Muslim. Anyway, for several weeks, I have followed the saga of a supposed noose discovered at City Hall in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And the noose was allegedly planted by some racist who wanted to intimidate this poor black worker at City Hall. Who planted the noose? Unknown. Can we see the noose? No, we cannot. Why would someone do this? We're supposed to believe it's just some racist who hates this lady, but it is notable that this worker has been involved in ongoing discrimination disputes with the city and her employer. So, a noose found at the desk is very useful, very convenient to perpetuate that claim. Now, the woman's name is LaTarsha Brown. She reported this news herself. This discovery of a noose at her desk on January 10th. Now investigators are seeking her DNA. As previously discussed, the case was turned over to the FBI at the demand of local activists. They were all protesting outside and they had their press conference and say the feds need to get involved. The FBI needs to get involved because this is a hate crime and hate crimes are federal matters. So then the FBI did get involved, and the FBI asked LaTarsha Brown, I think in cooperation with local law enforcement, but hey, LaTarsha, could you please provide us with a DNA sample voluntarily? They asked her that on January 14th. She refused. So now police are seeking a warrant to compel her to give a DNA sample. According to the warrant application filed this week, LaTarsha Brown has not cooperated with the investigation. She has declined to answer phone calls. She has not returned calls after voicemail messages from Allentown police requesting a follow-up. Police want her DNA because they believe, or she said, that she touched the noose while taking photos of it. Other employees have gladly agreed to provide DNA samples. In fact, according to the story, all other employees who were interviewed during the investigation agreed to provide a DNA sample if needed. So maybe they haven't provided it yet, but they've all said that they're willing to do that. The last time police spoke with LaTarsha Brown was January 15th. Now, give it a week or two. Predictably, the next update in this story will be that, of course, as any sensible person knew upon reading this story, she planted it herself. But there probably won't be any charges for filing a police report because of reasons X, Y, and Z.
It's not against the law, ho. Fuck you.
It actually is, but she'll probably get away with it anyway. Because of discrimination against her, of course. But that'll do it for tonight's show. I'll catch up with your super chats, and we'll call it an evening. Let's see. Pseudo Biden. Holy crap. Pseudo Biden following up on the drug discussion. So let me see what you have to say over on Rumble there. Let's see. Last we left this discussion, overdoses increase as the crackdown increases. That was your last point. Pseudo Biden says, yes, there is a market correction for these things. You can sue the people for fraud on any legal products and for hurting people. You don't need a government to avoid computers blowing up, and yet they don't. Yeah, that's a fair point. Although, I mean, are the drug manufacturers and the computer manufacturers really the same honest dealers? But if you can sue the dishonest drug dealers, is that better than the government putting people who possess the drugs or manufacture the drugs in prison? I don't know. I don't know that I'm convinced on that, but I will grant your point that you have a structure in place for that sort of thing. I guess I just don't understand how do you do it? I guess it would have to be market standard practice that there's like an ingredients list on your drug shipment, like is mandated by the FDA. Your nutrition facts on your fentanyl. And if there's a lie in that, if there's a lie in the advertising, if there's a lie in the labeling, then there's fraud, then you sue. I guess the question is what happens if there's no label and you just consume this, you don't know what it is, and you are damaged or you die from that. Is there grounds for a lawsuit? I think the point that we would both agree on there is don't consume the drugs. Certainly don't consume the drugs when you don't know exactly what they are. And I hope that we could agree on that point. Like that there's a rotten moral core that needs to be corrected to get people to stop doing this and to have intact families to either prevent people from doing this or to help them out of these situations when they do find themselves in them. And I definitely have more faith in that over the government's intervention, for sure. Pseudo Biden says, by the way, safe and effective was the government talking about the vaccine they specifically made immune from prosecution. True. I'm not suggesting any such immunity for drug makers. Free market all the way. Yeah, the only hole I can poke in that is just with... you're going to rely on the consumer's due diligence to potentially consume products that I guess are unlabeled, or for there to be a fraud component, there has to be a lie, right? And if there's no lie involved, like, hey, take these drugs, I don't know what's in them, and you decide to do that, I'm guessing, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, and I invite you to email me on this. It's not a super chat necessary thing, though I of course appreciate the support for the show.
We love you. You're very special.
I think your solution there, at least I would guess, is just don't consume things that you aren't sure about. Fair enough. Also says, all you need Jesus doesn't work when your government is taking his place by regulating the whole country and removing personal responsibility from everyone. Start with that. Agree. I definitely would agree with that premise too. Can the government replace a proper moral framework? Can the government replace God? No, can't. The government and our participation in it is merely a reflection of an attempt to recreate that law. But if we are rotten in our own moral cores, I mean, we're going to get a government that is a reflection of ourselves. And that's the unfortunate truth about the government. Now, I don't mean this to excuse their corruption and all of the demon people in the government. I'm not excusing them in any way. But there is truth to the idea that they are a reflection of us. That they are there because we put them there, because we allow them to be there. Ultimately, we the people do have the power over the government, even if it seems impossible. Like that power center is just too strong. It could never be defeated. Time and time again, people defeat corrupt power centers. And if our government gets any more corrupt, I have no doubt that it will end with the same fate. But yeah, I agree, Pseudo Biden. And thank you for the thoughts. As I mentioned, this is something I've thought about a lot. And I think I'm more hawkish on drugs than I used to be. I'm more in favor of regulation and criminal penalties than I used to be, because I see I see the stuff that's going on in Oregon where they totally decriminalized and the results are just devastating. But I get it. Like it's a difficult issue to navigate from a principles perspective, and I appreciate you making the argument. Guam SAR. Chuck, I mean, okay, I have to go with this one. Chuck Todd is a pole smoking homo.
I love you.
That's not clever at all, but I'm leaning into the bit. I'm leaning into the bit tonight. And if you're going to, if you're going to fully lean in that way, I of course am going to give you the entry that you deserve. Got to mark it down properly here. One moment. Why am I so bad at copy paste? That's the big question here. All right, there we go. Let's see. Pseudo Biden, yes, we can agree on the moral core. I think the government makes any moral question worse off rather than better, and you're not going to fix people through force. Generally agree with that premise too. I would say that justice against bad actors, against evil people, has to be achieved through force, though. But I think you would agree with that too. Like what you're talking about is a different context, say, than murdering someone, than stealing their stuff. I think you would agree that when a crime like that is committed, force to bring justice to that crime is absolutely necessary. But what you're talking about is force to say to prevent a person from abusing himself, things like that. Can you use coercion to make a guy a better person? Generally, I don't think you can. You can use coercion to take him off the streets when he's demonstrated that he's a threat to others and he abuses them. Yeah. You use force to do that. But can I point a gun at your head and be like, you will be a good man now? Not really. It doesn't have a great track record. I would agree with that. It's just about that use of force is more about removing threats than it is instilling virtue. And I certainly would agree with your point on that. Okay, over on YouTube and Tippy, TJ says, if a bunch of basically nobodies take positions in the DNC, I'm suspicious the slush fund money is empty and the rats are leaving a sinking ship unless the DNC vice president or vice chair isn't all that important. I wonder if it is all the oddities about the DNC, progressive politics in general right now. What I mean is their leadership void. Like, I saw polling earlier that they want Kamala Harris back as their nominee. That's how void of leadership these people actually are. David Hogg is ascending to vice chair. And the biggest question of all, where the hell are your foot soldiers? How is it that Donald Trump just walked into the White House and you didn't have massive riots? And, other than the assassination attempts that happened before he won the presidency, you really didn't have these like violent uprisings like we became accustomed to in the years prior. Where is all that stuff? And the simplest answer, I think, is the one you're getting at, that just whoever was funding it, and we know they were doing that. Remember, they bust all those people in for Kamala's DC speech right before the election. We know they bust in people, paid people to make that event look like it was some big thing. Almost all of the Democrats' optics are astroturfed, paid people, not paid actors. They want us to believe. But I just wonder if like whoever cuts the checks decided, nope, not worth it anymore. I'm going to do something else. It's the simplest explanation, and simple explanations are often correct. Canadian, thank you, TJ. Canadian 33, problem is looping Canada in with Mexico. 9 kilos of fentanyl from Canada in the last year, 9,000 kilos from Mexico, 19,000 immigrants from Canada, 1.2 from Mexico. The tariffs justified to the threat. Yeah, well, and I guess that comes down to a question of what are Trump and the White House looking for from Canada in concessions? Because I would imagine that the concessions they're looking for are proportional to that activity. And if they're just willing to say like, okay, here are the problem areas, here's where the fentanyl's coming from, here's how it's trafficked, here's what we're doing to address that, I bet Trump would be pretty accommodating on that. I can't imagine that he's going to have them commit to a whole bunch of actions that are totally disproportionate to the threat or the activity that's going on. As far as I understand Canada's position right now, it's just like head in the sand, dig in your heels, fold your arms, no matter what. And I'm sort of surprised by that, because you'd think that we could all get together on this one. But he's Trump. Daniel Yeager, much like Leah Thomas becoming a lawyer, is that the swimmer, right? I have to respect Hogg's tenacity to climb the ladder to get into a position of power. Might want to take some lessons. Well, there is that argument too. Like, we're all sitting here laughing at David Hogg, ha 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 ha, and I'll always take that opportunity. That said, who's got more political power right now, David Hogg or me? David Hogg does. So who's the real joke here? No, I don't know. There are many different ways to be influential, to make a positive impact, and to be a man besides, say, Democrat Party leadership. And I think first and foremost, it's incumbent on every man to be a father and a husband and to build a family. And David Hogg's a young man. I'm not saying he has to have done that. He's 24. Like, of the many reasons to criticize David Hogg, that's not one of them. But I guess what I'm saying is, just because you're not necessarily like in party political leadership doesn't mean that you aren't taking a man's leadership role in bettering the future. There is no way to better the future without cultivating your own family. That's every person's part. And that's my excuse not to have ascended to the heights of David Hogg. You can call it cope. You can call it rationalizing, whatever you want. But yeah, I'll take your point, Daniel. Hey, he's doing what he believes in. He's living his best hog life. Trav to the world. Tariffs dispute the College of Corporations talked about in Network. Is that the movie? I know I watched that one. Trump is reasserting a world of nations over the hermetic hell of Hegel, Marx, and Schwab. Also, please bring back movie reviews. I guess to the point, I don't remember the movie that I watched. I know I watched that one. No, like anything else, it's not a never. But on the movies, as I've said, one, I think that segment in particular benefits from multiple people. And I could bring on another person to do it. It's got to be the right person. And of course, they have to be committed to watching them and doing some thoughtful reviews. And it's a question of where my resources are best placed in a tumultuous time of a lot of turnover and a lot of changes. So it could come back. It's just not my current priority. But I appreciate that you enjoyed them. And thank you for supporting the show. Myth Slasher, Trump won in 2024 with 77 plus million. Biden, quote unquote, won in 2020 with 81 plus million. So are they saying that 4 million Democrats didn't vote for Kamala because she's a black woman? Yeah, they being Democrat Party leadership, I guess so. I mean, yeah, the votes that they lost must be because of racism and sexism. But in fairness, if nobody makes people racist and sexist like Democrats, if there's any truth to the idea that racism and sexism was a motivating factor in the way people voted in 2024, well, very few people create racism and sexism like Kamala Harris can. So maybe there's something to it. Jiminy P, don't be gay. Good luck with that, you fag.
I'm dead, you fucking bitch.
It wouldn't be the first time I've been accused. If you're talking to me, I guess I don't know who the accusation is against. But thank you, Jiminy. Appreciate it. Let's see. Matt Grendel, public service announcement. Bobby Fingers has a newish video out. I only noticed it a couple days ago. I don't know who Bobby Fingers is. Some sort of, I don't know. Internet personality. I don't know who this person is. I apologize. But if you're a Bobby Fingers fan, go check it out. Thank you, Mac. Esoterica Unbound. The Intel community badly needs reform, but Tulsi blew the question about Snowden. I did see that, as in she said what did she say? She was asked, like, is he a traitor or whatever? She said he broke the law, but he also revealed very important things, something to that effect. Senate Republicans have been briefed on all the intel Lil Eddie Shitbird gave to the Russians. That's right. Oh yeah. So we're talking about Lil Eddie Shitbird. Okay. Edward Snowden. Many will not be impressed with her libertarian Barbie routine. Well, she's definitely making people on both sides hate her. But I'm not going to say that always means that you're onto something, but sometimes I take that as a cue that maybe you're onto something. And so I for one, I hope that she's confirmed. I think that she'll do better than most would. And I hope we get to see it, but it looks like it's going to be a tough situation. Donnie Biggerstaff. Play Skylanders with your sons. I don't, we're talking video games, I assume. The game I play with my son Calvin, my oldest, so this is like a board game kind of thing. Or is this also a video game? Oh, it is a video game too. I don't know this game. Oh, it says is it made by the people who made Spyro? Because if so, I'm in, because Spyro was a great game. If those people are involved. But I mostly just play Hot Wheels with my son Calvin. And then we got a new Paw Patrol game the other day. So it's Hot Wheels and Paw Patrol for me. No more Call of Duty. Thank you, Donnie. Jamie Clay, oldie but a goodie. Do you recall the difference between a chickpea and a garbanzo bean? You probably would prefer a garbanzo bean in your mouth, I'm guessing. I have... Wait, so is this a recycled super chat? Is that what you're getting at? Oh, wait. I get it. Okay, you definitely got me on that one. It's not a chickpea, CHICKPEA. I've probably been gotted by this chat multiple times. You're saying, what's the difference between a chickpea and a garbanzo bean? You probably would prefer a garbanzo bean in your mouth. I'm guessing, right? You wouldn't want a chickpea. You wouldn't want a chick-to-pea in your mouth. All right. I'll give you that one.
I love you.
Let me see what we got here. Got to plug it into our database of genius. Okay. Chris to the J Productions Convention of States update. South Dakota has passed the resolution through their Senate and are quickly moving through their House as the Wyoming Senate has also passed their version, racing to be number 20. Many states have had public hearings and are likely to pass out of committee, gaining ground. Well, thank you for supporting the show.
I am not going to be niggardly.
And of course, for your Convention of States updates. The threshold is what? Is it 38 states that have to be signed onto the Convention of States? If people recall, this is another way the Constitution can be amended. It's not just that Congress has to propose it and the states can ratify. The states can get together. If 3/4 of them agree to it, I believe is the threshold, right? 3/4 of states call a Convention of States, and they can all get together and pass constitutional amendments without the federal government's approval. And that is a route to undo a lot of the damage that's been done there. Now, its critics say it's also a route for states like California to do a lot of additional damage with constitutional amendments. But in general, I tend to be a Convention of States proponent. I would like to see this happen. I don't think the states that have the right idea are outnumbered by the states like California that have the crazy ideas. So I'm not optimistic this is going to happen numerically. It's a long shot. But if you actually had this come into reality, I think that the results of the convention would be more toward traditional constitutional ideas rather than, say, California communism. And so I'm generally a proponent of it. And I appreciate Chris on the update on it. And maybe someday, years and years from now, Chris, I'm going to get that update. It's finally happening. I'll see you at the convention, and I'll be there. Joshy Boy said, I find the whole let's just legalize all the drugs just as morally irresponsible as let's legalize prostitution. Well, they are very similar. Again, prostitution. In principle, does it violate the rights of anybody else? No. I mean, everybody's consenting, assuming that there's not human trafficking, but that's kind of a big assumption because it's like with the drug consumption. Can you really do A without necessarily including B? That's an important discussion to have. But in its purest form, person A agrees to sell her body to person B. There's no fraud. There's no coercion, no gunpoint. There's no violation of rights. There's just sort of the moral violation. Like, this is not a good life to live, and this is a perversion of the purpose of sex and the relationship between men and women. But yeah, a lot of the consequential factors or the consequences are similar too. Even if in the purest principle, it's not a violation of someone else's rights as we think should be a government matter, it has all sorts of external consequences that seem to necessarily go along with it. you have de facto legalized prostitution areas in San Francisco and Oakland. I remember talking about this in a video a while back. And it's not that it's legal on the books, but the police don't really enforce. You've got prostitutes soliciting outside of, say, elementary schools, and you've got just kind of prostitutes walking around certain neighborhoods of San Francisco, and that carries with it all sorts of other problems that you might expect. People are unable to even go outside in their neighborhoods anymore. And so, yeah, they're very similar themes. Like, and these are things that even if in the purest principle, they aren't violations of the rights of others. I know what I want the policy in my neighborhood to be. And that doesn't mean that I want the federal government to come in and police all of this in your neighborhood. But I know that if I'm getting together with my neighbors and deciding, are we wanting to look the other way on prostitution and drug consumption? My answer is no, because I know what kind of neighborhood I want to have. Even if there are challenges to the purest principles I would hold, I just don't think that those external consequences are separable from the issue. And so I think that engaging in these behaviors is not just a betrayal of yourself in the purest sense. It necessarily involves damaging the neighborhood, damaging the quality of life for other people. But as we've discussed, I'm open to pushback about it. Donnie Biggerstaff, thank you, Joshy Boy. Gas station Xanax, Adderall, and Percocet for the win. Gas station fentanyl. You know, if they just had fentanyl at Cup Foods in Minneapolis, maybe George Floyd wouldn't have OD'd. We never would have had to deal with all this bullshit. Esoterica Unbound. In terms of the logic applied, how are arguments on behalf of legalizing drugs any different than those for legalizing AI-generated child porn? Now, that's a very interesting one, too. Now, the argument on child pornography, of course, is that you are victimizing a child who definitionally cannot consent to that material. That's why child pornography is illegal. You're victimizing a kid. Now, when it's a artificially generated depiction in the way you're describing, that is not victimizing an actual child. So does the legal basis against child porn evaporate, or is that something that we ought to regulate? And yeah, you could take, without rehashing the entire argument there, again, it's a question of like, whose rights are violated in that arrangement, in that situation, and is the proliferation of that material or that behavior, is that separable from all sorts of external consequences that necessarily impact others? I think that's another great example. Thank you, Esoterica Unbound. Nathan Simpson. Justin Trudeau asked the Governor General to prorogue. That's a Canadian word I don't understand. To go into a mandatory recess with Parliament until later in March. He said this is to give the time for the Liberals to choose a new leader, and then he'll resign. Yeah, there you go with your Canadian government technicals. You know what? Since you have taught me about your commie country,
I love you.
I'm just going to appreciate that for its informative value. Thank you to Nathan Simpson. And by the way, Hope Innovations hydroponics kit, a proud Canadian product. It comes from Alberta, the neighbor province to my state. And we've done our research. I don't believe it's impacted by the pending tariffs. So look forward to that. Thank you, Nathan. Knuckle Hunky Buck, keep your moose limbs, like a moose's leg or a moose's arm, your moose limbs out of other people's cars, and you won't get your moose limbs bruised and battered.
I love you.
Oh, that's Knuckle Hunky. I can't. Knuckle Hunky Buck is not eligible for winning this because that's a conflict of interest. But that's a Hunky Buck classic, man. That's a good one. Esoterica Unbound. Sadly, this is precisely the way that Boris and Natasha would have chosen to deal with Moose Slim and Squirrel. Yes, I'm going to allow this one too. This is
I love you.
Is this a Bullwinkle joke? I guess I should have clarified before awarding it. Yeah, isn't this a Bullwinkle thing? Yes. Yeah, I'm not I never followed that cartoon closely, but you know what? I think that's clever. And I like Moose Slim jokes. So I'm gonna pull this one too. All right. Injured Guardian ingredients list on fentanyl. No NB4, K, U, D, and Pariv. This one's over my. This is probably a high quality joke, and it's just over my head. But I apologize. So I apologize, Injured Guardian. Thank you for making a joke that was too high quality for my feeble mind. Over on Rumble, Pseudo Biden has one more thought on the drug stuff. You're not helping people with drugs by putting either them or their dealers in jail, and it's certainly not going to make them morally better to go into prison, into the prisons we have in the U.S. Well, my point is, again, if my thinking on the justice system again is to bring justice, to eliminate the threat, or to eliminate the wrongs that they're committing against others, and I know you wouldn't grant that premise because you'd say they aren't committing any wrongs against others. They're only consuming drugs themselves, and if they want to rot their own lives, then that's their own problem. My point is, I think that the consumption and the distribution of these drugs actually does have inherent negative effects on those communities. I think to that extent, it is a threat against those communities, and I think it should be removed from those communities. So it's not necessarily about making these people good people or moral people. It's about removing the threat from those communities. But I take your point. Like, do I think that people go to prison and become better? They can. You know, oftentimes you hear about people who find Jesus or find something better than what they were living before in prison. I think that does happen. But does prison inherently make you better? No, you can become you can become a worse scumbag in prison. It's finding that moral core that is important, whether you do that in prison, out of prison. And yeah, prison doesn't inherently do that. It's not a magic wand in that way. It's just about making sure that you aren't able to damage the lives of or threaten the lives of other people any more than you have. But I appreciate the thought on it, man. It's an interesting thing to discuss. And thank you for supporting the show, of course. Let's see. Over on Odyssey, Blankets asks, Matt, do you think Maisie also asked Pam Bondi if she if she's sexually assaulted someone before? I don't think Maisie's on that committee. Did Maisie actually question Pam Bondi? I don't know if Maisie is asking women this question, but we'll see if she does. Also asks, do you have any favorite Tulsi moments? You mean in general? My favorite Tulsi moment is destroying the presidential campaign of Kamala Harris. Don't forget, it was on the Democrat debate stage in 2019 because Kamala never even made it to a single Democrat primary vote in the 2020 cycle. That Tulsi Gabbard just absolutely destroyed Kamala Harris, kind of on the themes that we're talking about tonight, because Kamala Harris likes to go out there and talk about how so many marijuana consumers or marijuana dealers are unjustly imprisoned. And she's going to fix it. And Tulsi's like, I don't know, you put a hell of a lot of people in prison for weed in California, so what's that about? Kamala Harris never recovered. That was the end of her campaign. And if Joe Biden and the Democrats had any political sense, it would have been the end of her political career. Instead, they allowed her to fail upward, to fall up the stairs just like Joe Biden, because she had the right racial or gender characteristics for their liking. But yet, it was Tulsi Gabbard who destroyed the presidential campaign of Kamala Harris. It was a great moment. All right, we're set on Odyssey. Thank you guys on DLive as well. Just a couple more on YouTube and Tippy. We'll call it a night. Knuckle Hunky Buck. If you miss movie reviews, I'll help you out with that. Think of your favorite movie. Matt hates that or misunderstands it. You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, it is so funny to me, and I appreciate people who liked the movie review segment. And frankly, I appreciate encouragement in any context. You know, if you liked a thing I did before and you'd like to see it come back, you know, I can't promise things, but I would like to make things that people enjoy, of course. But it is so funny to me because when I'm making that segment, a lot of the feedback I get is just, I hate this, stop doing this, you're wrong, your movie taste is crap, and also this is kind of irrelevant to the show, so stop doing it. And now that it's gone, I mean, I'm not going to pretend that there's people just banging down my email inbox telling me, please review movies again. But yeah, I get a certain amount of that. I don't ever get in my inbox anymore, thank you for not reviewing any more movies. And instead it's, please do it once more. It is funny just how, you know, you do it one way for so long, you do something for so long and people hate that and they want you to quit doing that. And so eventually, because of circumstance, in this case, you go a different direction. And not even because you think that's what like the mob wants. It's just, in this case, this is the direction I had to go, given the hand that I was dealt. And no, not that. We hate that. And I know it's not all the same people. It's just funny how sometimes you just have to realize like you can't please everybody. There's no way to do that. And so you can't aim to do that. But I'll just forever, my movie opinions were hated. And now in retrospect, people are like, oh man, I really miss that. Maybe it'll come back. Doesn't matter. Says long time no chat, beaches. If y'all get a chance to hang out with your hermanos, as in your brothers, do it. Communicating with like-minded bros is essential for your well-being and development. Okay, so we're not talking like sibling bros. We're talking like male friends. Yeah. I think a few factors there. One, as we've all entered this digital age, like internet relationships and things have kind of replaced that. You can have meaningful friendships online, but it's hard to completely replace, and you shouldn't completely replace like a real friendship where you do actual activities together, or you engage in certain social settings together. And then number two is just the hostility toward male spaces and male things. Like as feminism has advanced and as we've tried to reach gender equality in all these contexts, spaces that used to be just for men to do male things, which sounds gay but isn't. I just mean to process life with fellow men through a male lens, which is distinct from the way females go through life and view life and process life. All of that is important. And now that we've it's not just the erasure of female spaces like the women's locker room or women's sports, though that is important. As an extension of that, we've also chipped away at male spaces. Everything has to be for women too. We've somehow decided that gendered spaces are a bad thing. And that comes at a cost for men. It's not just women, though the threats to women are quite real. When you got a guy with a giant whatever who wants to be in your women's locker room, there's a real threat there. I'm not dismissing that. I'm just saying that like doing away with, guys' poker night, metaphorically, I know guys still have poker nights. They're not banned. I just mean metaphorically, we've kind of done that in a lot of different contexts in our society. That has consequences too. And men need those spaces. So ladies, shut the hell up and honor them. We'd appreciate it. All right. There are a couple more. Tortuga. Thank you. Doesn't matter. My grandfather's wisdom. If you don't look, wait, what? If you don't look, you might as well cut it off. It's that time of night. I'm 2.5 hours deep. If you don't look, you might as look at what? I mean, you might as well cut it off. I can gather at what, but what do you mean look at it? I don't know. I just,
That's a big game, man.
I guess I'll leave it at that. Tortuga, you can email me and explain it. And it's probably super obvious that I'm just late night retarded, but we're bringing back that word pursuant to Trump's executive order. Thank you, sir. Jason, criminal justice has several theories of punishment: retribution for the victim, rehabilitation, punishment, discouraging other possible offenders, and removal from society. The removal has the greatest immediate positive impact on society. Well, first of all, thank you for supporting the show. Very much appreciated.
I am not going to be niggardly.
But yeah, I guess I would probably share that philosophy of why we have criminal justice, or what the aim of criminal justice ought to be. Is it about rehabilitation? No, I mean, there's a reason to me it's called the justice system. And it is to pursue justice for bad actions taken against others. Again, in the drug context, to some of the chats, you might dispute the idea that drug consumption or drug distribution is a bad action against others. But in general, that's why a justice system exists. It is to pursue justice for abuses of other people. And so it'd be nice if you would reform and stop doing that. It would be nice if you would become a good person after the fact, but fundamentally, that's not what the justice system is there for or designed to do. It is designed to punish you, to bring justice for the abuse of someone else that you committed. Anything else is just a cherry on top. We should aim for those things, but they're not the reason why you're taking that action. And so I would agree that if someone has shown himself to be an abuser or a threat to others, you remove them from society, because removal of that threat in pursuit of that justice is the purpose of why you're doing this. It's not like, well, let's try to make him a good guy instead. We could mold him like he's clay. No, I mean, I'd like to believe that everyone is reformable, but I don't. I think people should be given chances, but there are just bad guys. Just a plain old bad guy is a thing. There is such a thing as a dude who, or a woman, I'm not even trying to be gender specific, but someone who has no business in public because they can't control themselves or stop themselves from abusing other people. And they need to be locked up forever. If you believe in the death penalty, some of them should face harsher consequences, but they cannot be out there freely because all they do is abuse other people. Those people exist. They're not reformable. They simply have to be removed. Anyway, I think we're all set. Great discussion in the chat tonight. Holy cow. This is one of the most interesting. And you know what, Jason, I'm going to give you your due for that thoughtful chat. I appreciate it.
I love you.
So let me get you entered as well. But yeah, this was a really awesome back and forth in the chat tonight, you guys. I really appreciate it. And let me just make sure that everybody is all set on Rumble. We look good. Good on D-Live, Odyssey, all good. Quick refresh. We'll call it a night. Yeah, we're all set. Okay, well, thank you guys for participating in the live show this evening. Really appreciate your support for the show, your interesting discussion. Thank you to the live chatters, super chatters, everybody who's making the live production a success. If you're listening on demand, thank you kindly as well. Thanks to my guest, Justin Nazaroff, Fenix Ammunition. That's phenixammunition.com. At Fenix Ammunition on X, that's Phoenix with an F, or just find it linked in the description. I guess I'm allowed to do that on YouTube now. I used not to be able to link to like guns and ammo sites, but Raju Mahan hasn't banned me yet. Thanks to producer Tim for his help this evening. Thanks to Knuckle Hunky Buck for his assistance as well. If you'd like more to listen to, check out the podcast page of my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/podcast. Anything else show related, mattchristiansenmedia.com or mattis.gay if you prefer brevity. I'm back on Sunday and Wednesday nights. Don't forget, delayed till after the Super Bowl next Sunday, but I hope to see you Wednesday anyway. Have a great night and a great week.